subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Right? In an instant, Leorio's anger soared to the peak. What a bastard. He almost pointed at Saija's nose and cursed. The opponent is a child, and you actually use such despicable and shameless means. They are prisoners here, Molek could understand. They're already prisoners who want to compare with you openly, and it would be strange if he didn't make great efforts to reduce his sentence and use all his best skills to fight us. Besides, the rules don't say you can't cheat, so don't think they follow the rules. Bastard! Leorio was still furious, gritting his teeth and shouting at the stone platform. Xiaojia, both of these candles have problems. We won't choose either one. Okay, I understand. Shao Jia nodded, and then looked at Saija, who was already a little restless in front of him. I don't want either of these candles. He grinned at Saija with his bright white teeth. I want the long candle on your body that is not damaged. Shao Jia was very cunning and chose the safest one. Saija. It's over, his trick has been exposed. However, as a man who has experienced the ups and downs of the fraud market for a long time, Saija will not be easily shaken or resigned to his fate. I don't have the things you mentioned. Saija denied it flatly. I only have these two candles. You can only choose the long one or the short one. There is no other choice. This is already a direct cheating. I don't want it. Shao Jia also refused to accept it. If you give me these problematic candles, I will definitely lose. He was not stupid, and he insisted. I want the long candle without any problem. Saija, the candle in front of me is fine. Shao Jia, I don't believe it. The two people were in a stalemate, and Saija also found that if he kept entangled like this, the situation would be in his favor. Anyway, the purpose is to better consume the opponent's time, so that he can whoosh. As Saija was thinking of various ways to delay the situation, he felt a gust of wind blowing past his ears. Then he felt a warm sensation his cheek. Saija subconsciously touched it with his hand and found it was covered with blood. His ear had been pierced by a bullet. Sorry, I haven't practiced shooting for a long time. Molek held the collector in his hand, pointed it at Saija, and chuckled. I became a little rusty if I'm not careful. You are violating the rules. Seeing this, the Batman on the opposite side immediately stood up and said, We agreed that this duel is a one-on-one match. You are violating the rules by intervening casually. I said, I was just practicing shooting, and I accidentally lost my shooting skills. Molek interrupted calmly. Just like this guy bit the candle that had no other body. I'm very curious. What if I accidentally kill him while practicing shooting here? And then I find other candles from his body? He had a smile on his face, but his eyes were calm as he looked at the prisoners opposite him. So what should we do? Batdut's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. Could they not know whether there was a normal candle on Saija? They just kept silent in order to kill time. But when Molek pointed out the problem directly, they had to face it. And they also found that the examinee in the black suit was more cruel than they thought. He even played with the bottom line of the rules more flexibly than they did. How could such a style of behavior be like that unreasonable mafia family? Batdu was mumbling there quietly. That's because there's no need to reason with prisoners like you. Molek on the other side heard it clearly and pointed it out directly. Although you said you were here to help us test us, in reality, you were just prisoners who failed in the outside world and ended up here. Identify yourselves clearly. It would be fine if you could just follow the rules, but if you try to do something weird again, Molek chuckled and said, I don't mind executing all of you guys right now. Batdu, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to complete all 5 duels and pass the hunter test? That's based on your tricks. I'm doing this if I really can't pass this round of hunter test because of this situation. Molek raised his head and looked at the surveillance camera. I don't mind having a good chat with the examiner of the 3rd round of tests after this is over. It should be the director of this prison, Bounty Hunter Lieber. To read the exciting novels, go to Falu Novel Network. Lieber watching in front of the screen. Damn, it's coming for me. He immediately put down the snacks in his hand and decisively announced into the microphone. Stop using any shady tricks. If any accidents occur, you will bear the consequences yourself. This was considered as a direct acquiescence to Molek's choice. The main thing was that he didn't know about the other candidates, but judging from the approach of this candidate Molek, he could really do it. His old friend was a living example. Ryber would never burn himself for these prisoners. At the stone platform, Ryber's voice spread throughout the space. After Sai-Jan knew that Ryber would not protect him, he had no choice but to take out the long candle that had no problem. Then, the result of this round of competition was already doomed. On the contrary, it was at the cliff where the prisoners were. Sure enough, he is still so arrogant, unreasonable, and intimidating others. Behind the prisoners, there was a whisper. The extremely depressing aura filled with resentment and hatred made Badit and the others' hair stand on end. They were certain that the guy behind them, who was a big shot to them, definitely had a grudge against the man in the black suit. On the stone platform, after Sai Jia and Shao Jia chose the candles, they immediately lit them and started counting. After the longest candle without any problem was chosen by Shao Jia, Sai Jia was left with only 2 problematic candles and a normal short candle. No matter which one, they couldn't beat Shao Jia. Then he could only watch the candle in his hand burn out before Shao Jia's. I lost. Ding. After Sai Jia lost, the screen on the cliff on Molek's side also changed from 0 to 1. This also meant that they had won the first game. Very good. Liurio cheered. This time we got off to a good start and won the next game directly. He couldn't help but make a yet gesture. Well done, Xiaojia. Now, if Molek and I win 2 more games, we can pass the level. Killua and Karapika said, "Did this guy forget about our existence?" Unlike Liurio, who was beaming with joy, Sai Jia walked back from the stone platform in a more depressed state. Not only did he fail to win this round, but his ear was also pierced. It can be said that he lost everything, and he almost couldn't come back. It was a complete loss. You've hit a wall, haven't you? A prisoner in a blue cloak sneered at the back. Who told you that you can only play tricks with small props like this? Sai Jia silently retreated to the corner. All right, the prisoner said this and took 2 steps forward. If you want to cheat, you have to risk your life. Now it's up to me. With a thud, the handcuffs and anklets on his body opened automatically and fell to the ground. After Xiaojia returned, the opponent also decided on the opponent. Okay, let me do this one. Karapika felt that he had to do something. Otherwise, if Liurio and Morak were to win, he would be in trouble. Then Liurio will definitely laugh even louder in the future. And with his character in the next choice, he will definitely use this as a contribution and qualification to ask everyone to make the decision he wants. Well, there's no doubt that Karapika thinks this guy can definitely do it. So, he stood up 417 and planned to take over the second match. On the opposite cliff of prisoners, the prisoner who had untied the shackles on his body also swung his blue cloak to the side. Suddenly, the extremely hideous, ugly, ferocious, weird, and inhuman face appeared in front of everyone. The sudden appearance of such an ugly and indescribable criminal really brought a great visual impact to Liurio and others. Even Molek, looking at this dazed appearance from such a close distance, felt that it was not easy for the plastic surgery to fail like this. The 2 eyes were large and small, one bulging and the other shrinking. The 2 eyelids were directly turned up, and the teeth in the mouth were either broken or rotten, and there was not a single good one. Even the teeth that could still be seen were exposed and protruding. One ear was sunken, and the other seemed to be wearing an earmuff. As for the nose, it was impossible to find it. The chin seemed to have many patches on the jaw. Compared with this face that seemed like a zombie, even Franklin's Frankenstein-like face seemed much more amiable. What's more, this guy was unaware of his ugliness. There he was flexing his disgusting muscles to his heart's content, with 19 small blue stars hanging on his left chest. This guy doesn't look like someone you can mess with. Liurio came close to Karapika and whispered, "If it doesn't work, just admit defeat and leave the rest to me and Morak." Killua on the side. "So you really didn't take me into account? Or did you forget about me?" It seems that the other party also wanted to win back around, consume more of our time, and regain some of their momentum, so they sent a powerful monster to take action, right? Liu adjusted his small, round glasses on his face and breathed a sigh of relief. Then the next guy to deal with should be easy, right? Gon, who was standing by, tilted his head as he listened to Liu's words. He always felt that what he felt was somewhat different from what Liu knew. This guy who looked scary didn't bring much fear to him. As for Killua, he was still sulking about being ignored and didn't want to pay attention to Liu, a guy with poor eyesight. He was indeed quite angry, but after listening to Liu's wrong judgment of the guy in front of him, he calmed down a lot. While there is no point in arguing with him because of his poor eyesight instead, he calmly thought about it and prepared to watch this battle. Another prisoner playing some tricks, yes, Molek Shaojia seemed to remember something and asked Molek beside him, "Do you know who this guy is?" You seem to know these prisoners well. The first update is here. The second update will be available later. Post views. 505 starred opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 116. Molek, are you a member of the Phantom Troop? They won 3-0. 116 Molek, are you a member of the Phantom Troop? They won 3-0. I can't say I know too much. Molek looked at the stone platform and began to flex his muscles and pose. Just like this guy, I don't know his past. Regarding some information about Jahu, whether it is Baidu or Wikipedia, or even the official Hunter website, Molek only remembers that he is a long-term prisoner. He is a repeat offender of fraud and extortion sentenced to 108 years in prison. He looks scary, but the scars on his face are actually caused by failed plastic surgery. He has steel on his right hand, and the number of people he has killed is marked on his chest, showing 19 people. So far, I have killed 19 people. On the stone platform, Jahu pointed to his left chest. But the number 19 is not good. It makes me feel unhappy all the time. He clenched his palms hard, making a crisp sound. But now I am very excited. Finally, the 20th person came to die voluntarily. Fisk, is he a serial killer this time? Liu spat. Kurapika, if you can't beat him, just give up. Anyway, we are here behind you. Kurapika, on the stone platform, ignored him. I am a person who only knows how to play with my life. I am interested in anything that can bring me excitement. I can't be excited unless I fight to the death. I don't want to play a game of no pain, nor do I accept a duel that ends in a pinch. Jahu smiled cruelly, with one claw pointed up to the sky. I want blood, your internal organs, and your painful expression. On the stone platform at the cliff, Gon's head tilted even more. Killua didn't even look at him. Only Liu was nervously observing the stone platform. No problem. Kurapika just nodded without hesitation. You decide the winning method first. I will fight in the manner you decide. Oh, you are such a brave boy. I thought the other party would be hesitant, but he turned out to be so decisive, which made me feel a little surprised, but I couldn't show it on the surface. So let's play a game where the game never stops unless the opponent surrenders or dies. He shook his neck and continued to make a creaking sound. However, I want to warn you, even if you admit defeat halfway, don't expect me to stop attacking you when the outcome is determined. Kurapika still looked calm. I understand. Let's do it. Huh. Zhou's right big. I glared slightly. Is this guy an idiot? Did he not understand what I said at all? Or is he so slow that he didn't feel anything even when he saw my scary look? Swish. On the other side, Kurapika had already taken off his clothes. It can be said that he takes off his clothes every time he goes solo, just like Shiryu in Saint Seiya. Let's get started. Kurapika waited calmly, chattering, "Oh, you are so brave. However, there's one thing I forgot to tell you." He raised his finger and shook it. No weapons are allowed. Only fists and feet can be used to decide the outcome. Although I am an examiner, I am also a prisoner, and we are not allowed to carry weapons. Okay, I got it. Kurapika said, "It's okay, I got it." He threw the 2 swords he was carrying aside. Is there anything else? If not, we can start. He really has hidden weapons, Jia, who looked at the 2 swords on the ground, but he didn't seem to rely on them very much. Is he confident in himself? No, that shouldn't be the case. Maybe it's because he has no way to retreat? Haha, it seems that he was frightened after seeing me like this and lost his judgment. Fortunately, he had prepared a special move to deal with such a slow guy. On his right arm, And behind his back, hey, is Karapika okay? Leorio was still worrying uselessly. I think this guy is going to be very difficult to deal with. Gon straightened his tilted head and looked at Killua. What do you think, Killua? I don't feel anything. Killua was relaxed. In his opinion, the opponent had flaws everywhere. Not to mention killing. I'm afraid the opponent didn't even have the courage to hit someone. He was just bragging. Really? I don't think there's anything to worry about either. Seeing that he was not the only one who felt this way, Xiao Jie was more convinced of his own judgment. The more I look at him, the less scary he seems to be. Leorio was worried and reminded. Karapika, you have to strike first. A frontal attack might be disadvantageous to you, Daha. Before he could finish his words, he saw Jehu suddenly leap forward. I'll show you how scary I am. He jumped high, swung his right fist, and smashed down at Kurapika from top to bottom. Boom! With one blow, gravel flew everywhere. Kurapika dodged in time, but Jahu's right hand smashed directly into the floor, leaving a big hole in the ground. One strike broke the floor. Leorio continued to yell with his eyes wide open. On the stone platform, Jahu slowly raised his right fist, and as if inadvertently, he turned around, revealing the tattoo on his back. It was a spider tattoo with 12 legs. That is, Leorio recognized it immediately. That's the mark of the Phantom Troop. Gon's eyes widened as he heard it. That's the group that killed all of Kurapika's clansmen? That's right. That's Kurapika's enemy, the notorious murder group Phantom Troop in the world. Leorio nodded solemnly. I didn't expect this guy to be a member of their group. He is not a member of the Phantom Troop. Molek suddenly said, Isn't it? Leorio was stunned and looked at him in confusion. But the spider tattoo on his back, the members of the Phantom Troop all have their own numbers printed on their spider tattoos. Molek explained simply, and no one welcomes the troop to be imprisoned as a prisoner. If they fail, they will die, and then someone new will come to replace them. Everyone has strong strength. This guy is far from the real Phantom Troop in terms of momentum and style. Is that so? Leorio pointed at the spider tattoo on the other person's body and asked subconsciously, but the tattoo on his back, then his body suddenly froze. He also thought of a possibility or a fact. The other party is probably a fraudster, right? Xiaojie said bluntly, just like the last guy who competed with me for candles. Leorio, it's embarrassing to be tricked by 2 consecutive fraud prisoners. But you know so much about the Phantom Troop. Molek. Killua put his hands behind his head and looked at Molek and joked, Are you one of the members of the Phantom Troop? I am not an expert in killing people, and I have no interest in crime, Molek said seriously. I am a law-abiding citizen, not a criminal wanted by their group. Killua, you seem to be a member of a mafia family, always willing to take human lives to practice your gun skills, and yet you still say you're law-abiding. It's a bit inconsistent. On the stone platform, after showing off for a while, Jehu turned around again. I put steel on my body so my fists can break rock. Then, the mark of the Phantom Troop will be printed on it. Anyone who sees these 2 moves at the same time will never have the courage to fight me. Jahu smiled smugly in his heart. To read the exciting novel, go to Falun Novel Network. Then he thought that he would be invincible as before and turned to Karapika proudly. What's wrong? Are you so scared that you can't speak? Jahu said proudly, I'm one of the 4 kings of the Phantom Troop. The outside world calls me the king of destruction, Jahu. He continued to commit suicide and stepped on the minefield accurately. Jahu, dancing on the edge of the knife, said proudly, the first strike was just a greeting. The next strike was not to hit the floor. But if you want to admit defeat here, I can give you a chance to live. He seemed to be condescending and trampling on the dignity of the weak. How? Huh? Gigi Morak typed these 2 words in his mind, and Leorio and Gon beside him also guessed that the test was almost over. This was the most forbidden thing that Kurapika could not tolerate. But the guy on the other side was totally offended. Some people really think their life is too long. Kurapika is angry. Even Xiaojie's expression became serious, which was rare. On the stone platform in front, Kurapika slowly stood up. At this time, Jehu had already noticed something was wrong. He subconsciously took 2 steps back. Then, he saw Kurapika's pair of red, clear eyes. There seemed to be anger and hatred in those eyes, which were both beautiful and terrifying. What do you want? Jahu's body retreated uncontrollably. Did you hear what I said? In return, Kurapika ignored him and approached him step by step. If you give up now, stop or I'll hit you again. Jahu's right hand was shaking and a little red and swollen. Because the steel was too painful, he could only throw one punch a day at most. Before he was caught, Jahu had a spider tattoo on his back, pretending to be a member of the Phantom Troop. But he was actually not very strong, and he might have never killed anyone. So he was called a paper tiger. In the past, he just wanted to bluff and scare off his opponents. But this time, he kicked the iron plate accurately. Before Jahu wanted to say anything else, Kurapika's big hand directly pinched his cheek and took advantage of the situation, lifted him up high. I know I was wrong. Jahu, who was in the air, finally panicked and shouted for help. However, in response, Kurapika punched him hard in the face. Bang! With such a strong force, he fell to the stone platform in an instant, and he didn't know whether he was alive or dead. I'll give you 3 pieces of advice. Kurapika slowly put his fist back and stood up. First, the real Phantom Troop's mark should have the member's number tattooed inside the spider pattern. His voice was deep and powerful. Second, they kill so many people that they don't bother to count them. Third, never say the words Phantom Troop again in your life. Those red eyes shone with firm determination. Otherwise, I will never let you go. After saying that, he didn't even look at the guy lying on the ground. He picked up the clothes on the ground and turned back to his side. No, are you okay? Leorio's voice became quieter when he asked. Oh, it's okay, I'm not hurt. No, Leorio stretched out his finger rather cautiously. Can I still get close to you now? Kurapika raised his head. His eyes had returned to their normal color. In fact, I have long seen that this person is just a paper tiger pretending to be is that so? Leorio twitched his lips. I felt something was wrong when I first saw his scary face. I didn't expect it to be fake. Kurapika continued to walk inside. I can also see that his tattoo is fake, but when I see the spider's mark, my eyes will immediately turn red. He leaned against the wall and sat down slowly. To be honest, when I see a spider on the ground in front of me, my personality changes drastically and I lose all my rationality. But my reaction means that I haven't forgotten the hatred I had before. I should be more thankful. After saying that, he lowered his eyes, making it impossible to see his expression at the moment. After hearing this, Gon and Leorio immediately looked at each other. Be careful not to let Kurapika see the spider next time. Well, let's wait until the test is over before telling Kurapika what Molek knows about the Phantom Troop, or will affect his mood. Leorio and Gon discussed it briefly and quickly reached an agreement. It's useless. I lost so shamefully. I didn't expect this guy. Dino is good. The only thing he had was his scary face from a failed plastic surgery. The prisoners in blue cloaks also sneered at the fallen Jahu. They looked down on this weak guy who could only fool people. Even Reber in front of the screen was biting a chocolate bar and commenting on the scene. It seems that among this batch of candidates, there are also guys who have both skills and intelligence. Even if there are intelligent criminals on the other side, it will probably take some effort. It's fun to watch this way, isn't it? The scene returns to the cliff on Xiaojia's side. Who should we send out next? Everyone was discussing who would be the next player to appear. I think we can let Molek play and win the opponent 3-0 directly. Xiaojia made a suggestion. I think so too. We can end the battle as soon as possible. Killua agreed. Leorio, no. I can also end the battle quickly with a score of 3-0. Killua, but I feel that Molek is more trustworthy. Yeah. Xiaojia nodded repeatedly. Molek is more reliable. Leorio, very sad, very shocked. But compared with Molek, he really has nothing to say. And just when Leorio himself was about to give up, I think we can still let Leorio take action. Molek stood up and said to everyone, Molek! Leorio's eyes suddenly filled with tears. He felt that he was believed. Well, I am quite confident in Leorio's ability. Molek said this while looking at the cliff opposite, with a subtle smile slowly spreading across his mouth. If he was not mistaken, there was an old acquaintance among the prisoners opposite him. I didn't expect you to come here specially to wait for me. Post views. 508. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 117. Simple and crude. A divided team, everything has a price to pay. 117. Simple and crude. A divided team? Everything has a price. You may be looking forward to me coming on stage and showing my true face to shock me, and then to be happy to compete with me, right? But unfortunately, if you're defeated 3-0, then all your hopes will be dashed. I would like to see what expression you will have when the time comes. With the martial arts sense of Kame Senryu, how could Molek not realize that there was a guy waiting for him on the opposite cliff? Here, Leorio was rubbing his hands in preparation. Okay, this one is up to me. He clenched his fists. Hurry up and carry that guy back. Tell the next guy to come and die. That won't do. The Batman on the other side sat on the ground. The outcome is still unknown. What do you mean? This guy just fainted. Batdu tried to move his body closer to the outside to avoid the lower and lower pressure inside. We are fighting to the death. Unless one party admits defeat, the fight will continue until the other party dies. This guy is still alive and has not given up at all. Leorio felt unhappy after hearing this. TSK, a bunch of bullshit. He turned around and looked at Kurapika, who was sitting there, and said, "Hey, Kurapika, just go and let that braggart die a quick death. I refuse, The winner is already clear, but the moment my opponent loses the will to fight, I will not attack again." Kurapika said his reason. Simply put, I don't like to take advantage of others in distress. Leorio was a little anxious. So what are you going to do now? The outcome depends on him. Kurapika said calmly. After he wakes up, the final outcome will come out naturally. In this situation, I don't want to do anything else. Leorio, veins suddenly bulged on his head. Otherwise, I'll do it for you. Killua flexed his wrist and stood in front of Kurapika. I guess you haven't killed anyone. He looked at Kurapika, who lowered his head. Are you afraid? I've never thought about whether I am afraid of killing people or not. Kurapika was silent for a moment and then slowly said, It's just a one-on-one competition. You have no right to interfere. That's true. Killua thought about it and stepped aside. I didn't expect you to have such a hard temper. That's true, but no matter what, Leorio's tone became a little more serious. This is a team competition. Don't cause trouble to everyone. Sorry, I don't want to change my principles. Kurapika still insisted. It is visible to the naked eye that Leorio's anger value has soared again. Well, let's have the minority obey the majority. Those who agree to kill that guy with one blow, press the circle button. Those who disagree, press the cross and start. He pressed the circle button without hesitation. As a result, there was no movement on the big screen. Why isn't this showing? Because they don't want to care about us. Xiaojia, who was not pressing any buttons, whispered, We can decide this issue ourselves. Leorio, okay, let's vote by raising our hands. Those who agree that the guy should die, raise your hands. The whole place was in complete silence, and no one followed him in raising their hands. What do you guys want? He was almost unable to control his impatience. Killua looked speechless. Because this is meaningless, Kurapika said he won't change his mind, and if we agree, there's nothing he can do about it. But didn't Kurapika swear to destroy the Phantom Troop in order to become a hunter? Leorio couldn't accept it. Then don't worry about it, and try your best to pass the hunter test. Am I wrong? Kurapika simply closed his eyes. I've tried my best, but what I can't do is impossible. Leorio's cheeks were about to bulge. He wanted to grab Kurapika's collar and shake the bastard awake. But at this moment, there are two types of things that cannot be done. One is that you're not capable of doing it, and the other is that you do not want to do it. Molek also came over and said, You belong to the second category. Kurapika raised his head, already prepared, and looked directly into Morak's eyes. I'm sorry, I won't go. I'm not here to force you. Molek interrupted him and said, In this world, it's a rare thing for you to have your own principles. But what is even more rare is that he can maintain this principle in all situations. He said slowly, I just have a few questions now, and I need you to answer them. Karapika. Karapika looked at Molek without saying anything. Leorio, who was standing next to him, also became less angry after Molek came forward. Gon and Killua were listening to the conversation between Molek and Karapika. You said that the moment your opponent loses the will to fight, you will stop attacking. Molek went straight to the point. What if we were facing a genuine member of the Phantom Troop? Would you make such a choice again? Chi. Karapika suddenly clenched his clothes. At the same time, the key words were triggered, and his eyes began to turn red and black again. The second question is, if someone is willing to tell you the whereabouts of your tribe's eyes, but the price is to kill the person lying on the ground, what would you do? Karapika's breathing became a little disordered. In fact, I think that in this world, everything you do has a price. The same is true of the so-called principles, Molek said leisurely. It's nothing more than a price to pay, whether it can make principles give way. Just like you are now, Karapika. Now, this is the common team fighting method of 5 people, and because of your unwillingness to take action, Karapika, we will stay here forever. Thus, time is wasted, and it is even possible that this will continue until all our time is exhausted. Xiao Jie couldn't help interrupting when he heard this, but the other party had already planned to admit defeat. Wouldn't it be better to wait until he wakes up and then judge the result? What if the other party keeps pretending to be unconscious, or stays unconscious like this? Molek just looked at him. The end result is that all our time will be wasted. Therefore, because of your principle, Karapika, our test failed this time. I'm not trying to blame you. I'm just telling you the cost of doing this. Leorio will fail the test and will not be able to realize his dream of becoming a doctor. Xiaoji couldn't get a license either, so he went to find his father. And after you have harvested their disappointment and broken friendships, you can't catch the Phantom Troop anymore. And I can say responsibly, to read exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. He looked at Karapika and said, you will never have this opportunity again. Karapika raised his head suddenly and looked at Molek with his red eyes, as if telling him something. You will understand some things after you become a professional hunter. Molek knew what he was thinking. This is a hurdle that determines whether you are qualified to continue chasing the Phantom Troop. If I cannot pass such a small hunter test because of principle and give up the vow I made to get a hunter license for revenge, then I also suggest that you let go of this hatred in the future, because your principles and your hatred are incompatible in some cases. When you make the choice of principle, you basically lose the qualification for revenge. There is gain and loss, and it is difficult to find a solution that is perfect in this world. After that, he stopped looking at Karapika, who lowered his head again. But if this is the case, Leorio opened his mouth. He wanted to say that it was Karapika's own business to choose the principal. Now that they were a team, he had to consider others. This is just a trap for majority rule that IT seems to be very convenient and efficient. In fact, it is a very dangerous trap. Respecting this method may seem to respect the will of the majority, but in reality, it is a system that silences minority opinions. If this happens again and again, the opinions of the minority will be constantly silenced. Anger, dissatisfaction, isolation, distrust, opposition. And then the entire team disintegrates. As Leorio's face gradually became clear, Molek continued, if the 5 of us had been close friends for many years, that would be a different story. But we've only known each other for a few days. Being forced to accommodate other people's opinions can easily lead to a dead end. In voting, there are 2 methods that must not be used to resolve the issue: discussion and raising hands. Especially raising hands without the protection of anonymous voting, knowing who is against the child, but without the opportunity to refute, this is the worst way to vote. Leorio, now that he has said this, it seems that he's just done all these stupid things that he shouldn't have done. So what should we do now? He suppressed his embarrassment and shook the watch in his hand, which was ticking away the seconds. As for the situation, Molek, you have already analyzed it, so there should be a solution, right? Without forcing Karapika, his tone was a little weak, knowing that he had just done something stupid that he shouldn't have done. It's simple, I said. Everything has a price. Molek snapped his fingers lightly. The first method is that we don't have to care what Karapika thinks. If you think this is a waste of time, Leorio, you can just go up and kill that guy yourself. I go straight up. Leorio's forehead was full of black question marks. But isn't this a one-on-one duel? And it's between Karapika and that guy. So, I said, there will be a price to pay. Molek looked at the cliff opposite. What if someone from our side goes up and kills that guy? Then you're interfering with their duel. Batta thought for a moment and responded truthfully. You have violated the one-on-one rule. As usual, you will be judged as the loser of this match. Understood. Molek nodded and then turned to the crowd. So, the price is to sentence us to a loss. And then he looked at Leorio again. The one who takes action may also earn Karapika's dislike. Leorio pouted immediately. In the current situation, earning Karapika's dislike? It's almost like earning his dislike. He wanted to beat the other person up, so it seems that there is actually no loss. Killua stroked his chin and seemed eager to try. In this case, even if we take action, the result will only be one win and one loss. Next, we win 2 more games and pass the same, but Karapika, Xiaojia also wanted to respect Karapika's personal principles. They are all companions, and they all want to protect each other. Gone, Karapika has disregarded our entire team because of his own principles. Killua couldn't help but move forward. Then it's reasonable for us to take actions based on our own standpoints to save ourselves and pass the test without having to worry about him, right? That's true. Xiaojia thought about it and really couldn't find any fault. He wasn't a selfish person and understood that if you can do it on the first day, I can do it on the 15th day. It was Kurapika who ignored the qualifications of other companions for his own principles. So it was okay for Leorio and Killua to take action without considering Kurapika's principles. Besides, he didn't want to be eliminated here. Just like what Molek said, as long as one can afford the cost of doing something, then others have no reason to stop him. Although he doesn't want to see this emotionally, but based on the moral level, Xiaojia remained silent. However, just as Killua was about to walk over, although I'm not an old man, I am not a child either. Leorio stood in front of Killua and took a deep breath. But after all this journey, I still don't want to break up with you because of this. He wanted to beat Kurapika, but he didn't want to become his enemy. Seeing this, Gon's face once again showed a bright smile. Even Kurapika, who had fallen into silence, looked up and glanced at Leorio. Killua didn't intend to stop. But don't you want to pass, Uncle? I've already told you that I'm about the same age as you guys, so don't call me Uncle. Leorio complained. Molek just mentioned the first method, so there must be a second method, right? There is indeed one, but it is not as simple and crude as the first one. A slight smile also appeared on Molek's face. Although, it is undeniable that Leorio has various problems, and he is not like Kurapika, who carries a blood feud. Nor is he like Gon, who has the genetic talent of the Fully family. He is not like Killua, a super killer who was born into a killer family. However, it is precisely because he is more like an ordinary person that he is more real and down to earth. The subsequent interactions between the few people also confirmed his character. He helped his companions disguise and deceive the Phantom Troop in the hall, and he was able to punch hijinks for Gon, and he was praised by Kidder as an excellent doctor. From these aspects, we can see that he has many shortcomings, but also many advantages. He is a person with flesh and blood. Molek walked to the edge of the cliff and said, "The guy on the stone platform may have died a long time ago and will never wake up." Dut immediately responded, "I've already said that this guy just fainted for a while." "Really?" Molek smiled slowly and then drew out the collector again. "I don't believe it." Post views. 545, start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 118. Molek, I'm here for revenge. The examiner who was beaten up last year. Do you still recognize me? 118 Molek, I'm here for revenge. The examiner who was beaten up last year. Do you still recognize me? What are you going to do? After seeing Molek take out the gun, Batman instantly became alert. He just fainted now and didn't violate any rules. Fainting is just what you said. We can't be sure. Molek turned the gun in his hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to practice shooting this time. I just want to find out whether he really fainted or died. Batut wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Molek. We will not accept your one-sided statement. It's like if I judge now that he is dead. We have already won. If that's the case, the prisoners will not accept it. Well, let's make a bet. Batut smiled as expected, and then the smile froze. No gambling. Molek refused bluntly. I have never liked gambling, and I have an incompatible relationship with gambling and drugs. He said seriously, so, in this deadlock, we can either let the staff of the Hunter Association come forward to make the final decision. Or Molek raised his gun again. I'm going to shoot him in the head right now, and we'll lose this round. Anyway, it's just a win-lose situation. As long as we win 2 more games, we can still pass the test. After saying that, the collector's gun was already pointed at Jahu's head. I don't mind taking a prisoner's life here. Molek said ruthlessly. Anyway, you are just a group of prisoners who have committed many evil deeds. It is completely free of any burden for me to kill. Being ridiculed like this again, his face looked a little unhappy. I'll give you 5 seconds. If you still can't make a decision, my gun will make the decision for you. Molek glanced at the stone platform, his body tense and trembling. Don't doubt my shooting skills. I've been practicing quite well. Of course, if 1 or 2 shots don't hit the target, I will always have a second shot and a third shot. It's nothing more than a little more pain. The devil's whisper that seemed to come from hell made Jahu's body tremble slightly. 5, 4, 3, click. The obvious sound of the gun being loaded was heard, and Molek's hand was already on the trigger. Wait. Jahu's body trembled, and he immediately got up from the ground in panic. I'm awake. Even if I lose, I don't want any amnesty anymore. He rolled and crawled towards the cliff on his side. It's much safer to be in jail than here. I don't want to play with you crazy people anymore. At the same time, the number above Molek's head changed from 1 to 2 again. We won. Now we have 2 wins. Xiaojie cheered again. As long as we win 1 more game, we will pass the test. 2 consecutive wins really boosted their morale. Very good, it's my turn next. Liurio even mustered up his strength and waved his arms. Hurry up and let the next one come quickly. Boom. Before he could finish his words, a muffled explosion suddenly occurred from the opposite side. What a useless guy. At the cliff where the prisoners were, a hand directly pressed Jahu, who had run back into the wall. It was as if the whole person was embedded in it, and blood immediately flowed out of his mouth and nose. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. I've had enough of this boring game. A voice with deep resentment was spoken, causing Batman, Saija, and others to quickly retreat to both sides. The figure behind was revealed. It was a man with scars all over his face, wearing wild animal fur, with his hair scattered behind him. He exuded a strong resentment, and his expression looked like he had a deep hatred. His eyes were fixed on Molek and the others. His side had lost 2 games in a row, and he couldn't hold back any longer. The eyes full of murderous intent and hatred made Liurio and the others feel uncomfortable and a little puzzled, as if they were being stared at by a beast. Who is he? Liurio, who was about to go on stage, couldn't help but pause. Why are you looking at us like that? Liurio was sure that this was the first time he had met the other person. Then his eyes swept over Gon, Karapika, who stood up to check, and Killua. In addition to Killua, who looked more uncomfortable, the other 2 were also on guard and more confused. Is it Killua? Liurio thought so. Snap! He came for me. Molek stepped forward and patted Liurio on the shoulder. You can just give up later. You can't handle this guy. Liurio. He turned around in confusion. So who is that guy? Him. Molek glanced across and snorted. Just a pathetic loser. Molek! Suddenly there was a roar from the other side. Do you still recognize me? The man with scars on his face stepped onto the cliff passage. I came here this time to get revenge. This year, I am no longer an examiner, but an avenger, just to defeat you, the devil. Swish! He took out a short-handed scimitar from his arms, with a fierce momentum. This year, no longer an examiner? Avenger. Putting these 3 keywords together, we can easily get the answer. I remember Molek also took part in the Hunter test last year. Xiaojia couldn't help but look at Molek. But I didn't pass, Karapika nodded solemnly. The reason for not passing is Killua was also staring at the Avenger man opposite him seriously. He felt a rather uncomfortable and uneasy aura from him, and that aura was very similar to that of his brother Illumi. Beat up last year's examiner, Leorio's throat rolled, and he said with difficulty, that is to say, everyone almost said in unison, is the examiner from last year. The examiner who was beaten by Molek, they didn't add the word beaten because they saw that the other party was extremely resentful and didn't want to provoke him any further. No wonder I felt so uncomfortable, as if I was pricked by needles. Leorio shifted awkwardly. So he was the examiner before. Those who can serve as examiners are all professional hunters from the Hunter Association, real hunters. Leorio was getting more and more unsure. Now he was facing off against a serious hunter, and the key point was that he was a fierce and evil man, full of hatred and revenge, and he was not easy to mess with. He had different goals, so he was obviously more powerful than him. Is the real hunter? On the contrary, Xiaojia's eyes were sparkling. This is another professional hunter that could be seen up close. A professional hunter with a similar dangerous aura to Illumi. Killua's mind quickly started to work. That is to say, they have secrets that I don't know. He also thought of what Morak said just now. If you don't pass the hunter test, you will not be qualified for revenge. And this secret can only be known after passing the hunter test. He couldn't help but look at Molek's back. No, Illumi must know, and Molek must know too. So, is this also the reason why they are so strong? At this moment, a blazing flame suddenly burned in the strange light. I originally thought that I came here just to kill time and relieve my boredom, but I didn't expect to gain something unexpected. It seems that I must pass this hunter test. Kia's desire to pass the hunter test has been successfully raised in his heart. On the stone platform, the examiner Togari, who was beaten up by Morak last year, has appeared and gnashed his teeth. Since the test ended last year, I've only had one thought in my mind. I will kill you to avenge my injuries. His eyes were filled with resentment, and he wished he could eat Molek alive. Now stand up. I want you to taste for yourself the humiliation I suffered in the past. Togari died roaring. The momentum on his body is constantly surging. What should I do? Leorio, who was about to step onto the stone platform, wisely retracted his foot. This was no longer a simple test, and it was also mixed with the personal grudges between Molek and the other party. Things were already starting to get a little complicated, and the most important thing was that Leorio didn't want to fight with the examiner who had served as the hunter test. He was still clear about his own weight. Let's do it the same as before. Molek was not moved at all. Since you said you want to go, Leorio, then it's your turn. But sweat began to appear on Leorio's forehead. That guy specifically asked for you, Molek. Besides, I'm no match for him. He whispered, I think if I go up, I might be cut into several pieces by the knife in his hand. Well, Leorio is quite self-aware. It doesn't matter, just admit defeat here. Molek had already thought of everything. Then we will only lose once, and the rest will be left to me and Killua. But Leorio naturally understood, but he also considered Molek. The other party is obviously coming for you, Molek. If you go on stage, he may not give up. That's not something we need to consider. Molek raised his lips slightly. We abide by the rules and admit defeat in this game. But if the other party still refuses to repent and continues to pester us, the examiner of this round of test has to give us an explanation. Karapika and Killua suddenly understood after hearing what he said. This is a reasonable use of the rules, throwing the difficult problem to the examiner of the test. Morak deliberately did not play in this round and let Leorio abstain. Then the examiner of the previous session who came on stage would definitely not just obey the rules and step down obediently. Once the long-suppressed anger begins to vent, it will never be restrained. So, taking advantage of the desire for revenge of the examiner of the previous session to gain more favorable conditions for themselves in this round of tests, it really is Morak. Karapika and Killua both admired in their hearts at the same time. Even Killua looked at Togari on the stone platform, and there was a little pity in his eyes. It's really pitiful. Even though he came here for revenge this year, he is still used as a tool by Molek to seek benefits. He simply didn't even look at him, or rather, he didn't take him seriously at all. Thinking of this, Killua looked at Molek silently again. The examiner from the previous year on the opposite side also looked quite powerful, but he was beaten so badly by Molek last year, and he still had such a deep obsession. And now, Molek seemed to not care about him at all, and was obviously stronger than him. Many thoughts emerged in his mind, and Killua felt that he had once again refreshed his understanding of Molek. This person was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Hey, why are you still nagging? Tokari on the stone platform was getting impatient. Come up and die. I will let you taste it. I'm sorry. At the cliff, Leorio touched his head with one hand and raised the other hand weakly. This is my turn. Togari was startled. Besides, I choose to give up. So you and Leorio touched the back of his head and smiled innocently. Togari, what did you say? Leorio's words obviously caught Tohari off guard. But soon after he realized what was happening, he was even more shocked and angry. What do you mean? He spitted and was about to yell angrily. Are you going to hide like this? Molek, you're a coward, a wimp, a coward. Wait a minute, this is too much, uncle. Xiao Jie couldn't stand it. Although he didn't understand the situation very well, his side had already given up and admitted defeat. So this round of the battle was over. Why was he still cursing? According to the test rules, Uncle, you have already played, and it is time for others to play next. Xiao Jie said seriously. Now you have 1-1 game, and we have 1-2 games. It is time for the 4th game. Who carry? Do you think I'm here to play this kind of test game? Show me some respect. I'm here for revenge. Revenge. Understand? Don't give me that shit. Togari didn't care about that. Today I must fight Molek to the death. He swung the knife in his hand forward fiercely. Molek, stand up quickly. You have obviously violated the test rules. Seeing the other party violate the rules so blatantly, Xiao Jie's brows suddenly twisted. We have all given up. Uncle, please get down quickly. His stubborn temper came up, and he confronted Tokari directly. Ahem. Even Karapika coughed twice and stepped out to help out. Xiao Jie is right. We followed the rules of the battle, but the other party treated the rules as a joke and trampled on them without any care. He went straight to the core of the problem. This makes it difficult for us to be convinced of the tests that follow. That's right. Leorio nodded and agreed loudly. He was the fastest to rush to something that was beneficial to his side. According to the rules, he should step down. At this time, Reber's voice sounded from the surveillance speaker next to him. However, due to some special circumstances, I can provide you with a 2-choice vote here. The first is to let him step down, and our test will continue according to the original rules. As for 2, thanks to Sima Fengyin for the 1,000-point reward. I am really grateful. I sincerely express my gratitude to the boss. Pen refills. 2. Post views. 500 starred opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 119. Attack and shock. You are simply a monster. I still like your unruly look at the beginning. 119 attack and shock. You are simply a monster. I still like your unruly look at the beginning. The second option is to let candidate number 406, Molek, come on stage and compete with the examiner. In the sound of the trumpet, Li Bear spoke quickly. However, since we're the first to violate the rules, as long as candidate number 406 Molek finishes the competition, no matter what the result is, you will be given preferential treatment. On the subsequent journey of the majority decision trap tower, you will encounter including, but not limited to guess the current circle and cross maze dice minefield, and other troublesome levels. If everything goes well, it will conservatively take about 10 hours to pass these levels. This is based on the fact that you failed to pass the level and were eliminated. So, if candidate number 406, Molek, is willing to take the test, I can arrange for you to go straight to the last level. Li Bear was very direct and laid out all the conditions and benefits. Friendly reminder, the speed of clearing the trap tower in this round of testing will determine the advantage of the 4th round of testing. The sooner you pass the level, the greater initiative and advantage you will have in the next 4th round. In the monitoring room, after saying all this, Li Bear leaned back in his seat. He picked up the potato chips next to him and started chewing them like a hamster. I can only help you up to this point. Tori, Liber ate while watching the screen. If the opponent still refuses to take the challenge, then you can only wait until the hunter test is over before you go find him. Thinking of this, Liber couldn't help but sigh. In fact, in my opinion, letting go of obsession may be the best solution according to my observation. Even now, you are still no match for him. I already have a bad feeling now. At this time, the cliff platform directly reached the last level. Hearing such a condition, Leorio's eyes sparkled. He admitted that he was tempted. However, this is your own business. Molek. Leorio, who was very considerate of his companions, smiled and said to Molek, "You make the decision yourself." Yeah. Xiaojia and Karapika also had no objection. They would not make things difficult for their companions. They would not interfere with Morak's choice in such matters. Well, since you all said so. Hearing this, Molek raised his hand and touched Xiaojia's hedgehog head. I don't like wasting time either. And the guy on the stage seems to be very impatient, wanting to reincarnate. So quickly he smiled and walked forward slowly. Then I will help him. Ta-ta-ta. On the empty platform, only the sound of Molek's footsteps echoed. Is it coming? Kia, who had been silent all this time, now had a gleam in his eyes and stood up straight again. Let me see the secret of their becoming stronger. His eyes were burning, staring at the situation on the field without blinking. Killua was now looking forward to it. Ah, you're still kind. Seeing Molek walk up to the stone platform, Husho suddenly showed a cruel smile on his face. Since last year's hunter test, I've been training hard for a whole year to seek revenge on you. Swoosh. The curved short knife in his hand was instantly spun by a single finger, spinning in midair. It was as if it had been turned at an extremely fast speed, and it was spinning like a sawtooth cutting wheel. The whole person's mind power was fully activated, and the aura was surging, wrapping around the rotating scimitar in his hand from top to bottom. Is that so? Molek, just watch his actions. I don't see any improvement in you. His energy and telekinesis didn't increase much. Moreover, his use of energy entanglement and even the advanced use of skills didn't improve much. In other words, Tohari didn't work hard on the key basic source of power in telekinesis. Instead, the best is yet to come. Togari grinned and took out another similar short sword with his other hand. Just like the other one, he spun it at super high speed in the air with one finger. Two-sword style, huh? Molek's eyes were as calm as ever. He only had these 4 words to describe this. The wounds on my body. Thinking of the past humiliation and the unforgettable injuries on his body, Togari's face suddenly changed. His smile instantly faded and became eerie. I must take revenge today. Swish! He threw the 2 spinning daggers in his hands into the air. Then he took out 2 identical scimitars from behind. Infinite 4 swords flow. He swung the 4 swords in relays, caught them, and threw them away, constantly increasing the speed of rotation. So amazing. Leorio was staring at the cliff behind him. Those were 4 short knives that looked so sharp, and they were spinning so fast. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. That examiner actually caught all of them. Ah, this control and the speed of the hand that applied the rotation are all exquisite techniques. Karapika also said seriously, if it was you, Leorio, who just played, I'm not sure if you can survive. Leorio, you don't need to tell me. I can feel it myself. Facing such a spinning knife, and 4 of them, he definitely can't dodge. There's no way he can escape the possibility of being cut into pieces. As expected, it's here. Killua, who was standing beside him, was slightly shocked. When Tokari took out 4 swords and started to spin them faster, he could vaguely sense the uncomfortable aura coming from him. It was very similar to the time when he faced Ilmi before. Sure enough, is this the strange power? Kia clenched his hands tightly. Illumi and Morak will use this power. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 4 scimitars were constantly caught and thrown in Tokari's hands, and the rotation speed was about to reach the peak. In the eyes of Leorio and Kurapika, this move was an absolutely troublesome move. In the eyes of Molek, there was only one feeling, an acrobat, or like selling electric fans. After all, Tokari's catching and throwing action, plus the movement trajectory of the knife, really looks like the rotation pattern of the fan blades. No wonder the original battle between him and Hisoka was called a duel between circuses. Well, one is a juggler, and the other is a magician. But Molek is a professional, and he would never laugh under normal circumstances. "Watch out, Molek!" Tohari roared, and the 4 scimitars in his hands suddenly flew out. Continuously, from all directions and angles, they flew towards Molek. "Get out of the way!" Xiaojia and the others shouted hurriedly. While they were talking, Molek had already changed his body shape and dodged all the flying knives. "Ah, it's no use." Husho caught the ball and grinned, caught the ball and sneered. Up and down, left and right, front and back, the knives attacking from all angles are meant to cut you into pieces. The dense flying knife traps, like a net in the sky and on the ground, wrapped Molek up layer by layer. He couldn't move forward or retreat, and it seemed that he could only hide there. Until the moment when his strength was exhausted, he was torn into pieces by the many blades. It's over. The novel was taken from the Rala's website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. Leorio hugged his head anxiously. "Molek, if you can't hold on, you can admit defeat. But this is no longer a normal fight." Kurapika also looked serious. The other party said that he wants to fight Molek to the death. "This is a life and death battle where either you die or I die. Molek, he's in danger." To be fair, based on Kurapika's own analysis, if he were under this kind of attack, there would be almost no chance of survival. Xiaojin next to him clenched his fishing rod, his brows raised, and he was no longer calm. No one can dodge the attack of the infinite 4 swords flow. Togari's face began to twist. "I want to see you struggling in pain and suffering with my own eyes." It seemed that he had seen the beautiful side, and a happy smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "The humiliation I tasted last year, I will make you taste it thoroughly this year too." To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. He roared and increased the speed of the flying knife again. "Go to hell, Molek!" Whoosh! With Tokari's strong determination and the pleasure of revenge, the attack of the flying knife became more fierce. However, is that all? Molek stopped dodging. Then he stretched out his hands slightly. He simply clenched them. Puff! 2 high-speed flying knives were easily caught in his hands. Then he swung them forward lightly. Clang! The other 2 subsequent scimitars were also easily blocked by Molek with the 2 knives he held. Bells and whistles. He laid the 2 scimitars flat and gave this comment. How? How is it possible? The expression on Togari's face froze instantly. Even Kurapika and Leorio in the back had their eyes bulging. Next! They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. The flying knife that dazzled them, and they couldn't even find its trajectory and trace, was caught by Molek easily. And even knocked down? That's great. On the contrary, Xiaojia let out a long sigh and put aside his worries about Molek. I knew Molek would be fine. His little face once again showed a sunny smile. I admit that your 4-sword style is indeed very good. At an angle, Molek bent his wrist, but it is of no use to me. Just catch it easily and then crouch it down. There will be no problem. He said it very naturally, as if it was an extremely easy little thing. But the person opposite, Gua, was already sweating profusely. I practiced hard for half a year to catch the flying knife I threw. Whoosh! Molek spun the scimitar with 1 finger, attaching a stronger mind to it, spinning it at an even faster speed than before. Nothing, he chuckled. It seems to be much simpler than I thought. Click! In front of the screen in the monitoring room, the souffle in Li Bear's hand fell to the ground. Weird monster. He looked at Molek in the picture and muttered to himself. As a friend of Tokari, he knew very well how hard Tokari had worked in the past 6 months to practice the 4-sword flying knife. Moreover, he had practiced with Tokari as a sparring partner and could feel the power of this move. But now Molek easily cracked it. He could even reproduce this move in his own hands. He had practiced the stun hard for half a year, but in the hands of the enemy, he could easily imitate and perform it just by looking at it and feeling it. This was definitely a huge blow to the practitioner. It's over. Bear silently took out a few green dumplings that he had prepared earlier from the snack basket next to him. I will miss you in the future, Tokari. Everything was doomed from the moment Tokari's knife was caught by Molek. As an outsider, Bear had already seen the final outcome of the matter. But Tokari, who was standing on the stone platform, still couldn't accept it. Impossible! How is this possible? How can you catch it? Togari's pupils trembled and he roared, totally unable to accept this result. Not only him, but also Leorio and the others behind him rubbed their eyes vigorously. I guess I'm not seeing wrong. Leorio wiped his small, round sunglasses vigorously, then put them back on and looked carefully again. Molek, did he catch the 4 flying knives that surrounded him tightly? Xiaojie added, and it was very easy. Kurapika also breathed a sigh of relief. Not only did he catch it, he even blocked the other flying knives. To achieve this, eyesight, judgment, nerve reaction conditions, physical mobility, speed, strength all are indispensable. Molek's seemingly relaxed behavior actually showed his strength. For the first time, he showed such a serious look. Molek is stronger than we thought. After all, he was the one who beat up the examiner last year. Even Killua whispered beside him. It seems that this year, the result will be the same. He looked at Togari, who was almost on the verge of collapse, and he will face an even worse ending. He failed to get revenge and was killed instead. Killua shook his head. He had seen too many such situations. At the same time, he looked at Morak's back and confirmed it again. Just when Morak took the knife, he vaguely sensed the feeling that made him very familiar. If possible, he also wanted to know this secret and become more powerful like Morak and Illumi. How could this happen? Tokari was hit so hard that he stumbled back. He no longer had the arrogance and satisfaction he had just had. I still like your rebellious look at the beginning. Molek smiled slightly. If possible, I hope you can recover. You don't, it's just a monster. Togari was so unconscious that he couldn't hear what Molek said. I don't deserve a monster's words. A gust of wind blew, puffing up his black suit. I'm just an ordinary gangster. It's a pity that all your efforts were in vain. To kill someone, you must also destroy their heart. Molek left him with one last sentence. In fact, you were luckier last year than this year. At least last year, I managed to save my life. Whooshwa! The flying knife flew faster than before, towards Tohari, who was completely unable to block it. Puff! Blood spilt everywhere. Morak was not as perverted as Hisoka, who chopped off the opponent's head and decorated it on the platform. He just wanted him to suffer as little as possible and go to another world to continue to collapse. Plop! Tohari's body fell weakly on the stone platform, no longer having any signs of life. But the white pupils and the mouth that opened wide due to panic and collapse could not close for a long time. At least, it was considered that he had left a complete body. Considering that he provided Morak with another blind box, Morak looked at the blind box that was gradually condensing and taking shape beside him and smiled again. The blind box in this classic plot scene also slowly condensed and took shape at this moment. Post views 497. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 120. See the red blind box again. The best stuff. The ending of being dismembered. 120. Another red blind box. Great stuff. The ending of being dismembered. Well, just as Molek was about to kill Hikari, the blind box in this place slowly condensed into shape. Just at the moment when the competition was over, the blind box, emitting dazzling red light, appeared again. It was another red high-end blind box. This could be regarded as the last gift Hikari brought to Molek. Last year you gave me red blind boxes, and this year it's the same. Molek took a last look at the fallen body. This may be the only value of your existence to me. He put the blind box away without hesitation. Got a high-level blind box. Do you want to open it? Successfully opened. Obtained. Vibranium. Source world. Marvel Universe. Another metal. It is the same powerful metal as the time digital alloy obtained on the Poseidon ship before. Vibranium, a meteorite from the sky, is one of the hardest materials in the Marvel Universe. It is second only to adamantium in terms of the hardness of the alloy itself, but ranks first in terms of defense due to its ability to absorb kinetic energy. Vibranium has a supernatural oscillation property and can emit oscillation waves of specific frequency and wavelength. This makes it very hard, and its special molecular structure makes it almost indestructible. Because its molecules are relatively static, it hardly conducts heat and kinetic energy. This property allows it to absorb heat, energy, and kinetic energy. This also makes it able to resist extreme pressure, extreme temperature, radiation, electromagnetic spectrum, and other attacks. It can be said that it is the best material to use as a tool for making equipment. The most famous are Captain America's shield and Black Panther's suit and claws, and in Avengers 2, the ultimate weapon used by Ultron is made of vibranium alloy. Because it's also revenge, so you use the main material of a shield made by Iron Man's father for Captain America? Molek still remembers that in Captain America 3's Civil War, because Captain America, Steve Rogers protected Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier who had killed the Howards. Iron Man, Tony Stark, who wanted revenge but failed, thought that Steve Rogers was not worthy of the Captain America shield made by his father. So Steve gave up his identity as Captain America and returned the Captain America shield to Tony. Unfortunately, the name of the movie is Captain America 3. If the name of the movie is Iron Man, it will be different. 17. The treatment of the protagonist is also obviously different. Molek put away the vibranium and gave it to King to make protective gear. When Molek asked about the progress these 2 days, King also sent a message. His craftsman friend who made equipment was very interested in the rare metals that Molek took out. If Molek could take out more quantities and more types, presumably, there would be no problem in making it. Molek's requirements are not many, just better looking and more comfortable than the battle suit of Wakanda, Black Panther. So, we have one, right? Xiaojia didn't care about Togari's death, because that was the path he chose. So next, it's time for them to reap the fruits of their labor. Yes, the opponent fell to the ground, and Molek won. Leorio's eyes became brighter and brighter, and his tone became higher and higher. In other words, we can save so many obstacles and reach the last level directly. Molek won. His companions were safe, and they could reach the last level. They could pass the level as soon as possible and gain an advantage in the 4th round of testing. Just thinking about it is so cool. This is indeed the best outcome for us. Karapika also smiled. As for Killua, he is now concentrating on exploring the secret and power. On the stone platform, Morak moved his wrist and looked at the prisoner Cliff opposite. Now we have 3 wins, and we can get preferential treatment. He smiled at the stunned Duder and said, "Of course, if anyone is not convinced or did not have time to play and still wants to experience it, anyone who wants to play a little gamble with us or bet on our time is also welcome to come up." The group of prisoners looked at each other, and no one said a word. Saija turned his head away. Another person who didn't have time to play, Leluo, also quietly lowered her presence and retreated to the back. She is a female long-term prisoner, sentenced to 112 years of hard labor for trafficking rare creatures and violating gambling laws. She's also a psychiatrist and is very good at psychological warfare. According to her original plan, she was going to gamble time with this group of candidates. In the original version, she used psychological warfare to win all of Leorio's points in the rock-paper-scissors competition. As a result, Leorio not only lost the battle, but also lost 50 hours of time. But now it seems, fortunately, she didn't get to play. She glanced at Husho, who was lying lifeless on the stone platform, and then looked at Saija, who was embedded in the wall next to him. She silently tightened the shackles on her hands. Even the previous examiner, who made them tremble, was easily killed by the other party. Then it would be a piece of cake to kill them sure enough. In the hunter test, not only the candidates have to face life and death dangers, even the examiners may not be able to save their own lives. Even Lei Lut glanced at Saija, who rarely played and survived. In today's world, only children know how to show mercy. Congratulations on passing this round. Li Bear's voice was heard again from the trumpet. Please go back and follow the prompt to go to the shortcut to the last checkpoint. According to the rules, Li Bear provided Molek and his team with a shortcut to the last checkpoint. Great! A group of people were there rejoicing. No members were injured. No conflicts or divisions occurred in the team. And there was no need to make any more unnecessary disputes and choices. They just went straight to the last level. This was just too smooth. Molek, are you okay? Xiao Jie also knew that after Molek came back, he would ask with concern. Don't worry, I won't get serious with this. Molek waved his hand casually and said lightly. Kurapika and Killua looked at each other subconsciously. Compared with Leorio and Gon, they can better understand the strength and toughness of Morak. Let's go. Leorio was full of energy and didn't think about anything else. Let's go to the next destination. The group headed directly to the last checkpoint. And just as they were taking action, other candidates were struggling on other roads. Among them, on a single-person road. In a dark room, human flesh, I want human flesh. A prisoner in a blue prison uniform sat there, his handcuffed hands ready to move. He seemed to be eager to grasp something. He was still muttering, I don't care about commutation of sentence or anything like that. As long as I can feel the feeling of holding human flesh again, let me relive it again, squeak. The dark stone door of the room slowly opened. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of slow footsteps came, and a figure walked into the room. Oh, there is someone in this room. The magician came here with a very casual and playful attitude. Someone is coming. The prisoner in the room suddenly began to breathe faster. The fresh candidate he had been thinking about was finally here. He couldn't wait to taste the candidate with the extra fresh texture. Clang! The next second, the shackles on his hands and feet were all unlocked. The first thing the prisoner did was not to take off the blue cloak that represented his prisoner status. Instead, he squeezed the stone platform next to him with his broad palm. Clang! In an instant, a large piece of the stone platform was pinched off by his bare hands. He squeezed it hard in his hands, and it turned into gravel powder. Oh, Hisoka smiled with interest. Nice grip, huh? It seems that you have a talent for this. He gently pinched a card. Perhaps the guy in front of him could make him feel a little bit of the fun of the game. In the monitoring room, while Lee Bear was instructing Molek and the others on how to take the shortcut, he focused on the scene here. I didn't want him to appear, but since the opponent is also a murderer demon, then it is a professional match. The murderous demon versus the dismemberment expert is also a very interesting duel. Lee Bear was not at all worried about the bloody battle ahead. Instead, he picked up a piece of crispy food and put it into his mouth with great interest. Hunter test, there is mercy especially for murderers. Reber started his career of watching plays. In a dark room, after throwing the gravel, the prisoner finally took off his blue cloak, revealing the blonde, blue-eyed, melancholy-looking classic middle-aged appearance of a Westerner. Johnny, a super long-term prisoner, a mass murderer sentenced to 968 years in prison, also known as the dismemberment expert, is the most proud capture achievement of Reber, the director of this prison. He is listed as the most bloodthirsty and cruel pathological murderer in the criminal history of Saba City, having killed at least 149 people. The targets were not related, regardless of gender, age, rich or poor, relatives or strangers. All the victims were ruthlessly dismembered by him. It was a very famous case. All the corpses have one thing in common. No matter which murder was committed, it was done with bare hands. It was because of Johnny's extraordinary finger strength, the grip that could easily tear the human body, cut human flesh, and crush the wall with bare hands. When the police found the bodies of those who were killed, none of them were intact. They were all torn into pieces. At least the bodies were divided into more than 50 pieces, so she later got this nickname. Moreover, when Johnny was arrested by the police, he did not put up any resistance, which was quite unusual. He was easily tied up. Lee Bear also took out a lot of snacks. However, when Johnny was put into the police car and was about to start the engine, he secretly cut a piece of the policeman's wrist without anyone noticing. What he is best at is tearing flesh off a person's body with his bare hands without any weapons. He really enjoyed the feeling of tearing human bodies apart, but he was also looking forward to this fight. Lee Bear was also more concerned about his most proud arrest record. At the same time, he also wanted to see what kind of sparks could be created when two perverted killers met. It's been a long time since I could grab human flesh again. Johnny's fingers still had gravel chips between them. Looking at Hisoka, who came in, he was eager to move. It's been a long time since I've grabbed flesh from a living person. Is that so? Siso held the poker cards and looked at him slightly. He seemed to be looking for the right angle. What is about to begin is a one-sided killing game. Johnny walked forward slowly. Uncle, I have no interest in any test or amnesty. I just want to relive the pleasure of tearing meat with my hands, not like this. After saying that, Johnny rushed toward Shisaw. However, Hisoka, who was firmly in his sight, suddenly showed a strange smile on his face. Hello, I really like tearing the flesh off my opponent. A slow and gentle voice suddenly sounded from behind Johnny. Then, Johnny felt his big hand, which was particularly eager for flesh and blood, lose control. My hand, his eyes, which had been depressed, suddenly opened wide. Johnny watched his left hand fly in the air. Moreover, it was separated from his body. It was no longer under his control. I think this is a very bad habit. The slightly amused voice sounded again. Swish. This time, Johnny felt that his right hand also lost contact immediately. Snap. The sound of both hands falling to the ground sounded at the same time. I need to help you correct this wrong idea. Johnny could no longer hear the subsequent sounds, or rather, he no longer had that meaning in his mind. The only feeling he had was that every part of his body was leaving him. First his hands, then his feet, calves, knees, thighs, arms, shoulders. It was as if it was cut precisely by a sharp weapon. If he had previously torn apart someone's flesh, that was the way to dismember a body. Now Johnny was facing a dissection. My body, give it back to me. Give it back to me. He struggled to make a lingering gasp from the depths of his throat, but it was useless. He no longer had any body parts to support his standing. And then, a bright light flashed before his eyes. The world in front of him spun around, and then it turned pitch black. Faintly, he seemed to see a headless corpse, with blood gushing out of it. Boom! The cut body staggered, and finally fell to the ground helplessly. Ta-ta-ta! The entire dark room was silent, with only the sound of the distant footsteps. It seems that you have changed this bad habit. No need to thank me. There were faint teasing voices coming from the room, and no one looked back. Johnny, the dismemberment expert, ended up being dismembered himself. Liebert, in the monitoring room, watched the scene in silence. He looked at the strawberry mousse in his hand and saw how similar the color of the blood in the picture was. Sure enough, the murder expert is better. He threw the strawberry mousse aside expressionlessly. No wonder he was the guy that the examiners in the first 2 levels had to be wary of. It seems that in this round of testing, no one can stop him. Liebert felt that the subsequent targeting and arrangements for Hisoka could be withdrawn, because it was meaningless except for sending death. On the contrary, the other 5-member team, there's going to be something interesting to watch. Liebert pressed the beep button twice, adjusting the image of Molek and the others to the maximum. He covered the bloody image just now. Then he took out another chocolate wafer and chewed it slowly. After Molek killed Hyuker, thanks to Jiang Zuyufeng for giving me another 2,000 points of reward. Once again, I topped the list. I am really grateful for your support and love. I am overwhelmed and extremely grateful. Post views. 543. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 121. Shatter the Wall. Molek is so powerful. This is the kind of power, there is no doubt about it. 121. Shattering the Wall. Molek is so powerful. This is the kind of power, there is no doubt about it. Liebert also fully abided by the agreement and pointed out a quick shortcut for the 5 people. In less than half an hour, everyone avoided a series of difficulties and went straight down. They came to the small room at the last checkpoint. The candlelight flickered in the room, and there was a rather gloomy smell. This is the final stage of your majority decision, and also the final fork in the road. As long as you make this last choice, you will be able to reach the final bottom of the tower. In the center of the room, there is a statue of a goddess who seems to be imprisoned, with her arms tied up. Liebert's voice came from there. Please press a button to select which door. You have 2 paths to choose from below the statue of the goddess. Under her left and right arms, there are 2 iron doors. The first one is a long and difficult road that 5 people can pass. The other is a short and simple route that only 3 people can pass. Which one do you want to choose? Xiao Jie and the others looked over and saw a cross painted on the left door and a circle painted on the right door. Choose the short and easy way and press the cross. But if you want to press the cross, please use the handcuffs on the wall to handcuff 2 of them. The door will only be opened after 2 people are handcuffed. The 2 handcuffed people cannot leave here unless the time is up. Everyone automatically caught the position of the 2 handcuffs and chains hanging on the wall behind them. Obviously, if they choose this path, they will definitely have to sacrifice their 2 companions. Is there anything else to say? Liurio placed his finger on the circle without hesitation. The others made the same choice. By the way, if you press the circle button, no matter what method you use, it will take at least 45 hours to complete the game. If you choose the cross, you will reach the end in 3 minutes. Come on, do you want to choose a circle or a cross? Use your last majority vote. After that, Lieber chose to shut up and said no more. In fact, this was just a routine notification. Based on the status of these people he observed, he basically knew which path they would choose. They're companions who have overcome difficulties together along the way. Even among people who are not familiar with each other before, there will be a certain degree of friendship, of sharing life and death, not to mention these people. So, given that they have plenty of time, they will definitely choose the circle. Right, Lieber threw almond cashews in his mouth while visually estimating. Without thinking too much, he knew which one this group of people would choose. And the fact was just as he expected. Beep, all 5 circles appeared on the screen immediately. Of course, the 5 of us have to leave together. As the door on the right opened, Liurio complained, "What a quick way to pass the test, but it still takes 45 hours in the end. Because if you choose the cross, it will only take 3 minutes to get there." Karapika looked at the chronograph on his hand. It's only been 3 hours now. There's still 69 hours on their chronograph. Compared to the previous experience, this time is really too much. Well, if we press the cross, then we will definitely be the fastest to pass the test. Killua also smiled and said, "But in this case, we will have to leave 2 people behind." The examiner was very considerate and prepared various weapons from various places on the wall next to us. This means we have to kill each other and decide which 3 people leave. I can't stay here anyway. On the nearby walls, there were swords, spears, axes, meteor hammers, maces, and all kinds of long and short cold weapons. Xiao Jie didn't even look at them and walked directly to the passage on the right. None of us will stay behind. If we want to pass the level, we have to go together. Of course. Liurio walked in front and entered the passage first. But I'm not very happy when I know that those who reach the bottom first will have preferential treatment in the next round. At this rate, it will take us nearly 2 days. Maybe during this period of time, someone has already arrived before us. By then, we will be a little behind others. Liurio was cursing, obviously still having some complaints. Xiaojia followed the others into the passage, but after a few steps, he stopped. "What's wrong, Molek?" He turned around and looked at Molek, who was standing at the entrance, looking at the wall. "Nothing, I'm just thinking." Molek stroked the wall connecting to the forked passage. "Is there a 3rd way possible?" The 3rd way. Karapika and Killua, who were walking in front, also looked over when they heard the voice. "Well, if we break through this wall," Molek stopped stroking and said, "then there's a shorter and simpler fast passage from here to over there, right? Punch through a wall. Is it possible to do this?" Liurio said subconsciously, and was quickly interrupted by Xiaojia. "Of course." He also reacted, his eyes sparkling. "Isn't there an axe on the wall outside? Can't we just use an axe and a hammer to break open this wall?" "Axe. Hammer. Yes, there is this trick." Killua suddenly realized, and Kurapika nodded. Unexpectedly, the weapon that the examiner originally wanted to leave for us to kill each other became a tool to help us find a simple path at this moment. As expected of Molek, he has such a mindset. He finally looked at Molek and was amazed again. This approach of breaking the conventional thinking mode and framework is really not simple. "I'll get the axe." Liurio rolled up his sleeves. After learning that there was a faster way to pass, he seemed full of energy. "Axe? No need to bother with that. Molek shook his head upon hearing this and said, I've said before, I hate wasting time the most. If you use an axe to dig, it will take at least 40 minutes. So, wisps of mental power began to gather towards his palm. This feeling, Kia's pupils shrank suddenly again. Here it comes again. He felt it again on Molek's body, and it was still so close and so strong. So what happened? Leorio still had some doubts in his head, but the moment he finished speaking, boom, a violent explosion instantly erupted from the palm of Molek's hand. What is this? In the monitoring room, Reber's fox eyes widened slightly. The whole person sat up straight in an instant. Is it a telekinetic bullet? With his sharp eyes that resembled fox eyes, he naturally saw Molek's movements and moves. It was as if the energy was infused like a telekinetic bullet, causing a violent explosion on that wall. Is he from the release department? But from a perspective of personality, I think it is more likely to be a materialization type or even a trait type. Moreover, the idea of opening up the third channel without being bound by the thinking framework is obviously not something that the careless release system can have. Liber was thinking. To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. And inside that passage, that's it. Molek clapped his hands and announced that the work was done. A hole had been blasted out in the wall where he had just placed his hands. It was possible to go from the long and difficult passage here to the short and simple passage there. Leorio opened his mouth in astonishment, and Kurapika stared at the scene in a daze. The dust produced by the splashing of gravel had not yet dissipated. Good, awesome. Xiaojia also murmured this sentence with a fixed look in his eyes. As for Killua, he had already retreated a long way when the explosion happened. This is the power. There is no doubt about it. After experiencing it personally at such a close distance, Killua once again confirmed, "How did you do this?" Killua, unable to hold back his thoughts any longer, took this opportunity to ask directly, "Why can you blow up this wall so easily? And when you fought with the examiner from last year, you also showed extraordinary strength, right?" His question brought the other three back to their senses. Extraordinary power, what does it mean? Leorio still didn't quite understand. Xiaojia tilted his head. Kurapika seemed to be thinking about it, but he was still not sure. This question, Molek walked straight to the other side of the passage. After you pass the hunter test, you'll have the answer. He is not the kind of guy who likes to teach others. What's more, in this hunter test, there is also Ilmi, a perverted brother complex. They should deal with the matter of the Zoldyck family themselves. Clear the hunter test. Killua gritted his teeth and followed immediately. Kurapika thought of what Morak had said before, that if he couldn't even pass the hunter test, then he would lose the qualification for revenge. There must be something I don't know. He thought for a moment, then stepped over the wall with a determined look. Xiaojia also wanted to go over with his fishing rod, but was pulled back by Leorio. Do you know what they were saying, Xiaojia? I don't know, Xiaojia shook his head honestly. However, if he could tell us, Morak would have told us when Killua asked just now. And since Molek said that, as long as you pass the hunter test, you will know everything. He showed his bright white teeth again. Then we will do our best to clear the level. You guy, seeing that Xiaojia didn't care at all, Leorio couldn't help but smack his lips. He took another look at the cracked wall. I always feel that this world is very dangerous. He shook his head and sighed as he walked into the passage. This short and simple passage was a downhill sliding section. The group paid attention to their feet and quickly arrived at the final crossing point along the path. At the bottom of the trap tower, in a circular wide stone wall space, the stone door opened and Molek walked in first. Candidate number 406. Morak was the first candidate to pass the third test, taking 3 hours and 12 minutes. The system in the stone wall automatically recognized the number and played it. Later, Killua, Kurapika, Gon, and Leorio came in one after another. Candidate No. 99, Killua Zoldyck, the second candidate to pass the third round of the test, took 3 hours and 12 minutes. Candidate 404, Kurapika, the third candidate to pass the third round of the test, took 3 hours and 12 minutes. Candidate No. 405, Jeffries, was the fourth candidate to pass the third round of the test, taking 3 hours and 13 minutes. Candidate number 406, Liurio Paladin Knight, was the 5th candidate to pass the 3rd round of tests, taking hours and minutes. 5 people became the first candidates to pass the test and arrive here. Very good. So the 3rd round of tests is considered qualified. Liurio felt relieved after hearing the announcement, and it is also used to count the order of passing and the time of passing. I think it will definitely play a big role in the upcoming 4th round of testing. We are the first to pass the level, so we have already taken the advantage and initiative, and this also means that their chances of passing the 4th round of tests have increased a lot. Such good news really made him excited. Xiaojie also looked around with bright eyes. All this is thanks to Molek. That's right, Liurio agreed. It's all thanks to Molek that we were able to pass so easily. He's not stupid. Whether it was the last time he defeated the examiner by breaking his dangerous tricks or the power of blasting the wall with his bare hands, Molek's performances one after another have already shown his extraordinary qualities. Following Molek, we passed the 3rd round of tests so easily, simply, quickly, and efficiently. So as long as we hold on to Molek's big and thick legs, wouldn't the 4th round of tests be a piece of cake? That's true. Karapika also agreed with Lei Qianuo Zhao, Ollie's words. At the same time, he also sighed in his heart. Fortunately, Morak was their companion. Fortunately, not their competitor. In short, we're going to stay in this bare room for the remaining 60 hours, right? Killa put his hands behind his head and said a little bored. He also figured it out. Since Morak didn't want to say it, he would just wait until he passed the hunter test and came to him with a hunter license. Anyway, with his confidence in his own strength, passing this hunter test would be a piece of cake, right? He then focused his eyes and attention on the empty land in front of him. Well, in addition to the stone doors leading to this place, there is only the time display at the top, plus the notification system. 68 hours and 40 minutes left. Shao Jia also counted on his fingers. That means it was almost 3 days. They didn't spend much time at all. It seems that waiting in such an environment is also a test of patience. Karapika could only comfort them in this way, although he also felt that it was boring to stay here all the time. Without the pressure of passing the level, they actually had nothing to do. What else can I do? Liurio laughed and felt sleepy. Can we turn this place into a resting place? He said casually, and saw Molek also took out something. That is, Liurio blinked. He remembered that when Molek was running the ultra-long marathon in the 1st round of the test, he took out this capsule-like thing. Then, he conjured a motorcycle on the spot. Do you want to ride motorcycle to relieve boredom? That's fine. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 122, Molek's House. The confusion of the candidates. Perfect rest and no need to provoke. 122 Molek's House. Candidates' confusion. Perfect rest and no need to provoke. Liurio decided to watch from his side. I can also drive around in this room and show off my driving skills. Bang! The familiar purple gas came out again. Riding a motorcycle won't be so boring, and with such a large space, you can give full play to your abilities. I just don't know if Molek can lend it to me to play with. Halfway through his words, Liurio suddenly felt something was wrong. The smoke this time seemed much bigger than the previous motorcycle, and the vaguely visible dome-shaped shape did not look like a motorcycle. Instead, it looked like house. Liurio stared blankly at the smoke gradually dissipating, revealing a white house with a chimney. It's really a house. His eyes gradually became dull, and then became small eyes. What is this? This movement naturally made Kurapika, Gon, and Killua hear it. When they all looked over, they were also shocked by the scene in front of them. Killua, a white house? With a chimney. Kurapika, where did this come from? Did it appear out of thin air? So weird. It's too unreasonable, right? Gon, so cool. Was it done by Morak again? It's amazing. The 3 people were amazed there, giving their own different reactions, expressing their inner surprise. It turned out to be a motorcycle, and now it's a white house again. From that small capsule, a puff of smoke popped out. Liurio himself was a little incoherent, gesturing with his hands in the air. He didn't know how to describe his feelings at the moment. This is absolutely against common sense. Kurapika was puzzled. I have never heard of a capsule that can hold an entire house. Even the technology outside hasn't reached this point yet, right? Compared to Leorio's confusion and Kurapika's bewilderment, Gon accepted it quickly. He came to the door of the White House with great interest and asked Molek, "Can I come in and see it, Molek?" "Of course. This house is for us to rest in." Molek took the lead and opened the door. "Killua, come and see Morak's house." Gon excitedly called out to Killua, who was still looking at the house. Killua took a last look at the number 1 on the house, shook his head, and followed Gon in. Leorio and Kurapika followed subconsciously. 220 as soon as they came in, they were surprised by the decoration inside again. The house doesn't look big, but it has all the facilities. Living room, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, sofa, dining table, refrigerator, shower room, everything you need. There's even a TV. Leorio looked at the TV embedded in the cupboard and couldn't help but smack his lips. All kinds of household appliances are complete, and it can be used as a normal house. Kurapika sighed as he looked at it. Compared with the house he lived in when he was in the Karuta tribe, this house is much more complete. Compared to where I lived before, it's much better. Leorio was envious. When he was young, he and Paito lived in the slums. Such equipment is really unimaginable. Is this Molek's own house? Xiao Jia looked at everything inside like a curious baby. He had never seen such urban facilities before when he lived on Whale Island. "This is where I live when I travel." Molek opened the refrigerator and took out a few bottles of drinks. "My real residence is somewhere else." He threw all the drinks to the people. "But think about it. It's still incredible." Killua took the drink and said, "It can be filled with such a large house in one capsule. Why bother with so much?" Leorio, on the other hand, unscrewed the bottle cap and drank it in big gulps. "Ah, cool." He wiped the corners of his mouth happily. "As long as I can have a place to stay and rest comfortably, that's enough." His requirements are not high, and Leorio's goal has always been to be a doctor, so he doesn't care much about this aspect. That's right. There is plenty of rest before the upcoming 4th round of tests. Kurapika nodded gently. "It's also an advantage for us," as he said that several people found a place to rest. Kurapika and Leorio sat on the sofa, while Xiaojia took Killua to explore with great interest. Even if it's just such a small house, there are many interesting places. Molek simply turned on the TV and watched some interesting programs in Hunter World. When it was time for dinner, Molek also took out many grape spider eggs that he had captured in Toad Tiger Mountain before. In addition, bread, coffee, and some other ingredients were used to entertain everyone. After enjoying a beautiful lunch, everyone washed up. Then they yawned and took a relaxing nap. Some slept on the sofa, and some lay on the carpet. Of course, Molek slept on the only bed. In this way, when several people lived in this small house to rest, time was also slowly passing. After about 3 hours, finally, the second stone door slowly opened. A charming figure walked in with a cat-like step. Candidate number 44 Hisoka, the 6th candidate to pass the 3rd round of tests, took 6 hours and 17 minutes. The 6th candidate's ranking in the announcement made Hisoka slightly concerned, and he saw the strange white house in this wide space. "Hisoka, this shouldn't be the room that the Hunter Association provides for candidates to rest, right?" Hiso walked slowly towards the White House, but when he saw the number 1 on the White House, it looked very similar to the number 9 on the motorcycle that someone took out during the 1st round of the test. Are there 5 people in front? Comparing the identities of the 5 people in the small group, Hisoka instantly understood. So that's it, is it them? That capsule is really a very convenient tool. Hisoka took a final look at the White House and changed his position with a smile. He sat down directly opposite the White House, took out his playing cards, and stacked them into a pyramid. He didn't come inside the house. Xiao, who had just woken up, looked through the window and saw Shisuo sitting down opposite him, and he was relieved. After all, anyone who sees such a house would be a little confused. Leorio wiped his forehead. If Hisoka really came directly to the house, it would still make people nervous. Hisoka has already passed the test, and there will be more and more candidates to come. Kurapika thought for a moment. Should we remind them? Otherwise, there might be other candidates to disturb us later. Click. Under the stone wall, Shisuo was building a playing card pyramid from the bottom. Suddenly, there was a sound of the door curtain being pulled, which made him look over subconsciously. Then he saw Xiao Jie open the window and stick a piece of paper on the outside of the White House. He saw Shisuo's gaze, smiled and waved his hand, then decisively returned to the house and closed the window tightly. "It's them." Hisoka looked at the piece of paper Xiaojia had posted. There was only one number written on it, number 406. Well, this is Molek's candidate number card, which is quite simple and direct. Nothing can be more effective than Molek's name among this group of candidates. Hisoka, he chuckled, retracted his gaze again, and concentrated on dealing with the poker cards in front of him. Time passed bit by bit. In the trap tower, many candidates chose different paths and fought there. Just like the three brothers of Amori chose a three-way road. The three of them relied on the tacit understanding between brothers and overcame many difficulties effortlessly. There is also the bald ninja Hanzo, who relied on his superb qualities to overcome each level. And the rookie killer Dongba, who was supposed to form a team with Xiaojia and others, but this time he accidentally chose the double channel. He and the monkey trainer Somi got together and were sweating profusely because of the difficulties they encountered. In short, one candidate after another began to overcome the difficulties in this trap tower and move down. Just like this, a few hours passed. Candidate number 301, Jitaraku, is the seventh candidate to pass the third round of tests, taking 12 hours and 3 minutes. The third stone door opened, and the disguised Ilmi walked in with his head clicking. Seventh? He clicked and saw Shisuo stacking pyramids there. Then, he quickly noticed the White House. Well, it's so big and the color is so conspicuous that it's hard not to notice it. Number 406? Is that the residence of Molek? It seems that the 5 people, including him, should be in that house. Ilmi looked at the number on the white paper and walked towards Hisoka. At the same time, another stone gate next to it also rose up with a rumble. Hey, a ninja with a shiny forehead ran in. I must be the first one to arrive. He cheered confidently, but the next moment, candidate 294 Hanzo, the 8th candidate to pass the third round of tests, took 12 hours and 4 minutes. Hanzo's happy expression froze on his face instantly. The 8th 8. He immediately looked around. Yes, Hisoka, and the candidate named Jitalaku, who looked like he was not easy to mess with. Hanzo's eyes paused for a second and then looked away. In addition to the 2 of them, there were 5 other people. The next second, Hanzo saw the white round house. House. He looked at the house in astonishment. There's a house at the bottom of this tower? Is it the hunter test that provides us with a place to live? Before he finished his daydream, he saw the words, number 406, written on the paper on the wall. It seems to be the student's own. He also thought of Molek and his extraordinary performance in the first 2 rounds of tests. He decided not to provoke him and went to the side to train on the spot. Forget it. The 8th is the 8th. He could only comfort himself in his heart. Apart from the candidate number 406, the others who passed should be the companions next to him, who followed him, right? Thinking of this, Hanzo immediately ate a lemon. I'm really lucky. I was helped through the test, he said with a sour tone. Then he started practicing on the spot, chanting something. In less than half an hour, candidate 384 Greta, the 9th candidate to pass the third round of tests, spent 12 hours and 27 minutes. 9th, Greta, the black man who walked in with a blowgun, raised his eyebrows when he heard this number. It only took 12 hours to pass the trap tower that takes 72 hours to pass. This is definitely an excellent ability. Greta wanted to see who could be faster than him. Then he had the same reaction as Hanzo. Forget it. Let's just leave it at that. Greta took her eyes off the White House and accepted the result, sitting on the ground against the wall. Time continued to pass by bit. Soon, the day passed. Considering that the candidates who passed the level first could rest and replenish their physical strength, the Hunter Association was very considerate and provided food. Although it was just ordinary single-person food pushed out by the dining cart. And the food was just a simple pack of compressed biscuits and a cup of hot porridge per person. The candidates who passed the level in the bottom space came forward one after another and took their share. When Greta came back with her share of food, 2 more stone doors opened almost at the same time. Great, we finally reached the end. Bao Cure came out with a bow, an arrow on his back, and breathed a sigh of relief. The experience during this period was really dangerous, but at least he managed to get here without any danger. But just as he finished speaking, a man dressed in Indian clothes and holding a spear came out from the stone door next to him. Candidate 384, Bao Cure, and Candidate 371, Go See, arrived at the same time and were determined to be the 10th candidates to pass the 3rd round of testing, taking 30 hours and 11 minutes. The 10th? Not bad. Bakur didn't have any obsession with time. Seeing the food on the iron rack nearby, he immediately walked over there. Only the 10th one. Gosi looked carefully at the candidates who had arrived. Hisoka savored the biscuits, Hanzo and Greta chewed them, and Jatala chewed them like Tomcat chewing bubblegum. In my opinion, they are all good players. I really hope to play against them. Suddenly, his eyes froze. There were only 4 of them. There should be 5 other candidates. What is that? Bayokol, who was collecting food, finally found something wrong. What's going on with that house? Gosi also looked over immediately. A round house with a white chimney was particularly conspicuous. Number 406, he stared at the number seriously. If he remembered correctly, the number represented the man named Molek. He'd beat up the examiner last year and was extremely powerful. He was the strongest among the many candidates who came here to take the test. If I had to pick someone to fight with, Gosi tightly grasped the spear in his hand, then it can only be him. He came to participate in such a hunter test in order to be able to constantly challenge the strong. There is no doubt that in his eyes, Molek is definitely the most worthy target for him to challenge. Just when Gosi made up his mind and went forward to get food to replenish his energy, thanks to Beixiang Yidao for another 2,000 points reward. Thank you so much for your support. You are really a big shot. I will try to see if I can add another update today. Post views. 537 starred opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 123. Barbecue and Hot Pot. Envy and Jealousy. Clear the game. Gunkanjima. 123 Barbecue and Hot Pot. Envy and Jealousy. Clear the game. Battleship Island. Suddenly, a strong aroma of meat came, filling the 360-degree circular space. Almost at the same time, everyone's nose trembled. Receiving this meaty aroma, it came from that house. Without thinking too much, everyone knew where the smell was coming from. Not to mention the white chimney that had already started to emit smoke. They must be cooking delicious meat dishes in there. Hanzo crunched the hard whole wheat biscuits in his mouth. He was so envious that he couldn't help but grit his teeth. They were eating simple food outside, while the people inside were eating delicious meals. Hanzo, who was mentally unbalanced, didn't dare to imagine how happy the people inside were. It's so comfortable. In the hall of the room, Leorio picked up a piece of meat from the grill in front of him and stuffed it into his mouth. Then he took a big gulp of beer. This is life. He vented his feelings just like Noera Shinisuke's father, Noera Hiroshi. Although they both use the same voice actor. Indeed, it is hard to imagine that in this life-threatening hunter test, you can leisurely eat barbecue here. Kurapika held the tray in his hand and evenly placed the pieces of meat on each place on the grill. All this is really thanks to Molek. Xiaojie also put some vegetables such as mushrooms and tofu rolls. He is a child who is not picky about food. I haven't eaten like this for a long time. Killua was mixing the dipping sauce and sauce. Honey, cheese, sweet chili sauce, sugar. He likes chocolate beans, but he is a heavy sweets lover. Don't worry, I have plenty of food in this house. You can eat as much as you want, Molek said, and he did not forget to pick up a few pieces of roasted beef shank and pork belly. He wrapped them with lettuce leaves, added a few cloves of garlic, and put them in his mouth. The taste was so good. Molek, why do you eat meat with garlic slices? If you eat meat without garlic, the flavor will be half as good. Is that so? I'll try it too. I still think sweeter meat is more fragrant. Hey, Killua, your honey spilled into my dish. How dare you say that to me, Leorio? You poured too much wine. The foam is coming out. The 5 people were noisy, putting meat and vegetables pouring beer and drinking beverages. It was so pleasant and cheerful. The scene and atmosphere were extremely lively, especially knowing that they would face the uncertainty of life and death next human testing. Such a rare and short enjoyment is a luxury for them. Leorio and Karapika also enjoyed this moment, especially Karapika after his people were killed. He hadn't relaxed and rested like this for a long time, and a smile appeared on his face. Especially compared with the people outside, I saw that what they ate seemed to be compressed biscuits. Indeed, not as good as what we eat. Haha, and we had to sleep on a hard floor. How can we eat so well and sleep so well here? The four of us are resting and gathering our strength, while they may not have rested well enough. So we will still have the advantage in the next round. Lioli and the others are very satisfied with the current situation. There is no problem staying in this room for the remaining dozens of hours. In this way, several people in the roundhouse ate barbecue, chatted, and watched TV, and had a very pleasant time. On the contrary, the group of candidates outside could only eat compressed biscuits there silently, which seemed a bit desolate. Time was passing by every second. One after another, other candidates passed the test. For example, Boudreaux, Pengsi, the three brothers Amori, Zizichur, Bapeng, Suomi, and Domba. They're all familiar faces. Those who can come here and pass the 3 rounds of tests are all the best among ordinary people. Especially Suomi and Domba. It is really not easy for them to pass and arrive here together. However, everyone who came here saw the extremely eye-catching White House, especially the candidates who came here at mealtime, looking at the fragrant smoke coming out and then looking at the compressed biscuits and white porridge in their hands. Such a contrast and gap really makes people feel unbalanced. That's too much. Hanzo's mouth was filled with compressed biscuits, and he was chewing them like he was really eating meat. The last time we had barbecue, the last time we had soup, this time it was hot pot. He bit the compressed biscuits into pieces with a snap. Are they here to take the hunter test, or are they here to play house and travel? Hanzong, who was unable to taste these delicacies, could only stand there in impotent and furious jealousy. Moreover, facing the glaring number 406, he would not ask for it to avoid danger. He could only eat the biscuits miserably, enjoying the fragrance. The others also huddled there silently. They just wanted the time to pass to come quickly. 3 days passed quickly in the blink of an eye. Although it seemed a bit tormenting to the examinees, squeaked. When the time was reset and the countdown ended, the door on the ground of the trap tower slowly opened. It was at this time, let's go, it's time. Inside the White House, Molek changed his clothes and walked to the door. Oh, Leorio was the first to respond, full of energy and in great shape. The rest, during this period of time, has made him look very radiant. Not only him, but also Kurapika, Gon, and Killua are all full of energy and spirit. Next is the 4th round of tests. A group of people walked out one after another with expectation and confidence for the next test. Then, they saw a group of candidates staring at them. Then what's wrong? Xiao Jia looked at the candidates with bitter and resentful eyes, scratched his cheek, and was very confused. Nothing Kurapika and Killua could naturally imagine how much hatred they had for the few people who had food and drink and rested well in the house. They quickly pulled Xiaojia, who looked puzzled, and walked outside. Bang! Molek pressed the button, and the house turned into a universal capsule again and returned to his hand. After putting it away, he also ignored the green eyes of the other candidates and strode out of the trap tower. Naturally, the others did not dare to say anything to Molek. They could only be silent and went outside together. At this time, Liber had been waiting outside. Dear candidates, congratulations on escaping the trap tower successfully. With his hands behind his back, Ryber, who had a rooster comb and fox eyes and wore a gray coat, introduced himself. I am wanted bounty hunter and head of the penitentiary, Liber. Now I want to ask you, he snapped his fingers. Suddenly, an airship rose up from the cliff behind him. Get on this airship immediately. So, they're not even giving us any extra time and are going to fly directly to another examination room? The examinees did not think twice and boarded the Hunter Association's dedicated airship one after another. After nearly 2 hours of sailing, They arrived at their next destination. It seemed to be an island with a tropical rainforest climate, and around this island, there were many shipwrecks that seemed to have been in distress. When the airship landed on the island and was close enough, the examinees realized that such an island looked like a warship. After the examinees got off the ship one by one, someone was already waiting for them there. "Dear candidates, welcome to our hotel." The innkeeper and his wife welcomed him at the same time. "We are the owners of the only hotel on this island. As you can see, this island is where a huge warship is anchored. This ship has been renovated by us and now provides accommodation for you. In the past, we were honored to provide accommodation for King Nepala, and many celebrities have also stayed here. Our hotel is the Baya Palace on the sea." The boss was there touting his hotel, boasting about it in a grandiose way. His only goal was to collect a deposit of 10 million yuan when guests checked into the hotel. Even in a 6-star, if the candidates had so much money, they would not come here to take the test. Everyone refused to do it, and Liu Rio, who was sensitive to money, was even more furious. "Do we look like royalty? You are simply robbing us." Even Xiaojia said weakly, "We kids don't have that much money." The boss smiled and offered everyone a compromise solution. "If you do not have enough money, we have other ways to let you pay the money." All the candidates stared at each other. "To be honest, our main business is the antique business. There are many shipwrecks in the waters of this island. If you can find any treasures on these wrecked ships, you can use them as collateral. We are also willing to provide you with accommodation rooms for free." Friendly reminder, candidates need to check into their rooms before tonight. The boss and his wife said this, and the more than 30 candidates present also understood it. Isn't this just making them free labor to search for treasure? Moreover, this might be part of the hunter test. After all, the ability to find treasure is also one of the basic abilities of a professional hunter. There is no other way. Everyone can only go to sea, including Liorio and the others. After all, the boss emphasized that they need to check into their hotel room before tonight. This means that they cannot stay outside or in other places. For this reason, Molek's white capsule house can no longer be considered. Molek did not go to those rotten ships to dig for treasure like others. Instead, after strolling around the beach twice, he came back to ask the boss to identify the treasure. Of course, what was identified was what he already had. Clang! Molek casually threw a few golden coins in front of the boss's desk. These gold coins are in very good condition. It's rare to see them in such good condition. The boss carefully examined it, and it didn't look like it was fished out of shipwreck. It looked like it was just produced in a gold processing factory. Well, these gold coins were generated by the death and tax feature when Molek used Collector to kill his opponent. Every time he killed an opponent, he would automatically give 25 gold coins. He still had a lot of these gold coins in his hand. Unfortunately, the number of gold coins is too small, and it doesn't look like an antique. The boss coughed lightly. "I can only give you a second-class cabin at most." "Well, second class is second class." Molek took the key of this room without caring. "The main thing is that this hotel does not have rooms above second class." The other candidates who followed were the same. Bowker took a ring worth 900,000. The plates were given to the second-class cabin. Gon and Killua found a box of gems worth 10 million rings, and they were still in the second-class cabin. Liurio, on the other hand, only found a box of shells and was given a private small suite with plenty of sunbathing. When Molek found his room with the key, he opened the door and walked in. Not bad. Although the room is a little old, it looks very tidy. Whether it's the quilt, pillow, or bedsheet, they're all very clean. It seems that the proprietress takes good care of it on weekdays. From this perspective, it is not a bad idea to live here. I just don't know who my next roommate will be. Molek casually laid down on one of the soft big beds. The soft pillows really made it easy for people to relax. He also thought of the funny stories of many candidates changing rooms in the original version. Hanzo, who found the crown of the tragic Prince Jera III, who disappeared for unknown reasons on the day of the coronation ceremony in a certain country in the 16th century, was very dissatisfied with living with Kurapika, who lived with him just because he found a pendant. He went to complain to the boss and was bumped into by Liorio, so he exchanged rooms with him. In Liorio's words, My room is a private suite with super good lighting. You can enjoy it however you want. Well, this room does have good lighting, but it is exposed to the sun and it is uncomfortable, let alone enjoying it. If it gets hotter, Hanzo's head will be dried out. There are also Boudreaux and Go C, both of whom are guys who refuse to admit defeat. One is a martial artist, and the other is a warlike nation. After the two were assigned together, they began to work hard to compare through various training. And Dongba, a super veteran who has participated in 3,500 tests, although he has never been able to pass. But at least he can survive every test safely. It was also in this allocation of rooms that he encountered such a danger. He was assigned to the same room with Jitala Ku, also known as Yomi. Dongba. How could he be in the same room with such a monster? It happened that the monkey trainer Suomi wanted to change rooms, saying that if he stayed in that room any longer, his monkey partner Kamli would get gastroenteritis. The timely rain god Dongba immediately appeared and quickly changed rooms with the other party. Then Suomi said in surprise, "I owe you a favor," and the exchange went very smoothly. Then Dongba came to the room full of poisonous snakes, where the snake charmer Scarpung was. Dongba, Peng Si, who said she couldn't even breathe after being with that guy, insisted on changing rooms. Hu Baoi, the Dongba master, appeared in time again and got the key from her. No matter what kind of roommate he is hundreds of times better than those two monsters, right? With this thought in mind, Master Dongba met his last roommate. Hihi. Shisua occupied 2 beds and stacked playing cards in a pyramid. Dongba, AWSL. Just when everyone started to find their roommates and move in, the door to Molek's room creaked open. Thank you all for your support and love. I've been talking about adding more chapters. Post views, 572. Start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 124. Beautiful roommate. If you want power, you have to pay a price. You now have 2 choices, 124 beautiful roommate. If you want power, you have to pay a price. You now have 2 choices creak. The door of this cabin was opened by the second roommate. Molek looked over when he heard the sound. A beautiful woman with golden hair, wearing the same black suit as him, looking extremely capable. She was tall and wore sunglasses to cover her eyes. But when her eyes met Molek's, even though they were blocked, Molek still felt the stiffness and shock on the other person. Obviously, this beautiful sniper did not expect that she would meet Molek in this cabin. This guy has a fierce reputation and is extremely dangerous among the candidates. Bang! She turned around and closed the door without any hesitation. Molek guessed that she should have gone out to change rooms. But after Dongba God changed all the rooms that needed to be changed, could she find other suitable rooms that she was willing to change? She guessed that there were none. Molek waited quietly in the room for a while. Then she saw the door open again. This beautiful sniper hand once again walked in silently. Molek raised his hand and greeted. It seems that there is no suitable room to change outside. Candidate number 80, the beautiful sniper Ba, remained silent. In fact, there was someone outside who was willing to change rooms. Well, it was Dongba God himself. However, after 2 consecutive painful experiences of changing rooms, he was cautious and asked who Ba's roommate was. When he learned that it was Molek, Dongba God almost went crazy. He couldn't tell whether he was crying or laughing and said to Ba, "My roommate is Shisua. Are you willing to switch with me?" Ba, although Molek looks very dangerous, he is much better than the perverted killer Hisoka. At least after the 200 tests of 897, Molek has almost no casualties. On the other hand, Hisoka has experienced killing in every test. In this comparison, Molek is safer. Shiba walked to his bed silently, took off his sunglasses, and revealed a pair of vigilant eyes. "Don't look at me like that," Molek said slowly. "I'm a person who will not attack anyone without a reason. I am fundamentally different from those murderers who take killing for fun. I don't have such interests and hobbies." He made an inviting gesture toward Ba. "Would it be convenient for us to chat?" "What do you want to talk about?" This was the first thing she said after she came in. "Let's talk about why you want to become a professional hunter," Molek said. Of course, before asking others, You should answer it yourself first. I still understand this courtesy. I want to become a professional hunter because I have a subordinate who is a professional hunter. He told me that the benefits and treatment of the Hunter Association are pretty good, so I plan to take the exam first. Subordinates of professional hunters? Sherba was obviously stunned when he heard it. However, when he thought about how Molek beat up the examiner last year, it didn't seem strange with such strength. It was just that the style of the painting was a bit strange. He and others worked so hard, eager to become a professional hunter. But the other party's subordinates were professional hunters. Doesn't this mean that they risked their lives to participate in such a hunter test? But in the end, they became the same people as his subordinates? Then, aren't all their efforts and hard work a joke? Everyone has their own path to choose from. Molek saw what she was thinking. Among so many hunter professions, there is also the contract hunter. There is nothing wrong with hunters who are hired as bodyguards for wealthy people. Contract hunters, right? Sherbar raised his head and looked at him. So you are the employer, and you hired some professional hunters as your bodyguards, right? Do you think I need a bodyguard? Molek looked at her strangely, then shook his head. I'm also employed by someone, but I am the bodyguard captain, and I have other hunter bodyguards under me. You are actually a bodyguard? Sherbar really didn't expect this time. The terrifying monster that the examinees regarded as a demon was actually a bodyguard who protected others. What? Doesn't look alike. It really doesn't look alike at all. Why? Sherba couldn't help but ask. Why would someone like you be a bodyguard? Can't someone like me be a bodyguard? Molek looked at her righteously. You are discriminating against the bodyguard industry. You must change this wrong idea. Sherba, is the focus on the bodyguard industry? The focus is on you. She could hardly imagine that such a ruthless and terrible guy would be a bodyguard for a wealthy man. How big of a heart must the person who hired him have? Of course, the main reason is that my employer offers me a good salary, so I have no intention of leaving for the time being. Molek said casually, but if one day I'm not happy with my job, I will fire him and leave. Sherba, if you want to resign, it shouldn't just be a simple resignation, right? Well, after all that, you still haven't told me why you want to become a hunter. Molek changed the subject. I became a hunter to enjoy the benefits after getting those licenses. Sherba was silent for a moment, and then slowly said, after hearing about Molek's story, she felt it was too bizarre, so she was not so resistant. And I heard that after becoming a professional hunter, you will be exposed to another world and a new kind of power. You heard it right. Molek nodded directly. That's right. According to the requirements of the Hunter Association, only those who pass the hunter test will be qualified to enter that world. Is that true? After hearing the confirmation from Molek, Sherba couldn't help but be refreshed. It seems that I have to pass the hunter test. Her eyes became more determined. Of course, it doesn't mean that you have to pass the hunter test to gain such power. Molek cited his own example. Look at me, I don't have a license yet, but I'm still pretty strong, right? Sherba looked at Molek again. Indeed, whether it was Molek or Hisoka, they were both extremely strong. It was obvious that they were in a completely different world from them. They also came to take the test to get the license, which meant that they had obtained this power without passing the test. In other words, well, if you pass the hunter test, the Hunter Association can teach you that kind of power, but if you have the channels, you can also learn it from other sources. Molek smiled and took out a business card. If you fail the hunter test this time, you can come to me. Once you have learned this power, it will be much easier to take the hunter test. He handed the business card to Sherba and reminded him, of course, it is definitely not free to obtain such power. A subtle smile appeared on the corner of Molek's mouth. You have to pay a certain price. Tonight's night was particularly clear. Boudreaux fell asleep holding Go-Si. The two of them appreciated each other and seemed to have a good relationship. Shisua stacked 3 playing card pyramids on Dongba's bed, broke his own personal best, and fell asleep contentedly. Dongba was left alone, wrapped in a quilt, curled up at the door like a big fat worm. Hanzo was heated like a red Rambo, and he took off all his clothes except for his crotchless pants, but he still couldn't fall asleep. The monkey trainer Somi slept soundly, but his partner Kamli was frightened by the tilted head of Jatala. Courage, the snake charmer Scarpung, was playing his own snake flute, but the snakes he raised were very interested in Peng Si, who was taking a bath. The three Amori brothers shared a room, but the eldest and the second oldest slept on the bed, and the youngest brother Amori slept on the floor. Leorio and Karapika became roommates and lived together. However, when Leorio came out of the bathroom without clothes after taking a shower, he was met with a strong blow and crazy scratching from Karapika. In return, Leorio lay on his back on the bed, deep in resentment. "We are all men. What does it matter if we get naked? It's your own perverted thoughts. I can't stand it. Be careful, or I will really attack you." Sissy, Gon, and Killua both slept in terrible postures, with one leg stretched out. To read exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. Compared to these people, Sheba had trouble falling asleep. When Molek said that a price had to be paid, her heart tightened. When she asked what the price was, the other party just said lightly, "Let's talk about it after you make up your mind." The current price is only the current price, and when you want to find it again in the future, it may be different. It was this sentence that made Sheba's mood not calm down. Until whoosh. Molek, who was originally sleeping soundly next to him, suddenly got up and scared Sheba. "What's wrong?" "They left, gone." Sherba looked confused, and then he saw the Hunter Association's special airship that had been parked outside suddenly take off. The airship had been staying there, and everyone thought it would take them away again after the break. But now, actually left them behind and flew away alone. The departure of the airship naturally shocked everyone. They woke up from their sleep one after another, without even having time to put on their clothes, and immediately ran to where the airship was originally parked. Then they watched helplessly as the airship gradually rose higher. "Have we been abandoned here by them?" Leorio, wearing a simple shirt, looked at, "We were a little careless." Killua, who was only wearing a simple vest, also sighed. "So what should we do now?" The group of examinees could only watch the airship getting farther and farther away in their eyes, and there was nothing they could do. "Molek, do you have any ideas?" Xiaojia, who was also wearing only a vest, came to Molek's side. "Did you have such an experience last year?" "Not at all." Molek crossed his arms. "It's quite rare to throw so many candidates into one place and leave without saying a word." But the boss said before, Xiaojia recalled. He said that the next round of the fourth test will start in 3 days. During these 3 days, all candidates can enjoy a good rest here. "So, are we going to stay here for 3 days?" The two of them talked like this, and the other candidates beside them subconsciously gathered around to listen. In such an emergency, when everyone was at a loss, if someone could come up with an idea and become the backbone leader, it would also give everyone a reassurance. "Actually, it's not a good idea for us to speculate here." Molek looked around and saw that except for Shisua and Talaku, who were probably resting without any concern, everyone else came over. The simplest and most effective way is to call directly and consult the Hunter Testing Committee. "Let's see what they say." Molek said it's useless. As soon as he finished speaking, Bakuer in the crowd immediately shook his head. "I've tried it just now. There is no signal in this place. I can't make a call unless we look for a radio on this ship to see if we can contact the outside world. However, there is little hope. So, they have completely cut off contact with the outside world." Everyone looked unhappy and then looked at Molek. Ordinary phone calls are indeed not working, but Molek casually took out a seemingly ordinary phone and said, "It may not be a special one." "Specially made?" Beokol was stunned. "No matter how special it is, it still needs a signal to get through. This is common sense. If there is no signal, it will not work at all." Beep, beep, beep. Molek pressed the hands-free button, and the call sound was heard by everyone present. It actually worked. Click. The call was quickly connected. "Hello." A doubtful, somewhat unclear male bass voice came from the other end. The candidates present instantly recognized it. It was the male examiner from the second round of testing. "Hello, Bahala. It's me," Molek said directly. "Are you eating again now?" "Ah, it's Molek." Bahara heard it and seemed a little surprised. "It's so late. Why did you suddenly call me?" "Because we are now thrown here by 5.8, Molek said calmly. "We came out of the trap tower." "Trap tower?" Bahara was even more puzzled. "Then you should have arrived at Gunkanjima. How come you were thrown here?" Suddenly, he seemed to come to his senses and quickly shut up. But it was already late. The other candidates pricked up their ears when they heard this. You really know what's going on Gunkan Jima. Molek had expected this. Okay, just tell us your next plan. This won't work. Bohala hesitated and said, this involves the hunter test. I'm not in a position to disclose it. Sure enough, it's still related to the hunter test. Molek nodded as expected. Bohala, you now have two choices. The first one is that you tell me the main test content of this Gunkanjima session, and I will give you 2 menus later. The second thing is that I called the Hunter Testing Committee to ask for advice or to file a complaint. It's useless, Bohala hesitated and said, because the boss reminded you to stay here for 3 days as part of the test. Moreover, the treasures you fished out of the sea were left in the room by the boss and his men. Your complaint will not be accepted or accepted. Then in this case, Molek said directly, I will deal with the problem in my own way. He looked up and saw the airship that was about to disappear from his sight. Although the airship has already flown far enough, it won't be a problem for me to shoot it down. The boss and his wife are also on the flying ship, right? I just want to know the rules and details of this test. Post views, 574, start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 125, Armor Heroes Red Blind Box. Follow Molek and you'll have meat to eat. 125, Armor Hero Red Blind Box. Follow Molek and you'll have meat to eat. He left without explaining himself clearly. This examiner did a very poor job. But Molek smiled slowly into the phone and said, Bohala, you know if I accidentally use too much force when shooting down the airship and destroy the airship and the boss's family together, I will not be responsible. Just like the Thunder Drill pterosaur that we captured earlier. This is a threat, isn't it? This is a naked threat. Bohara has not forgotten at all that on the coast, Molek used the so-called Khmer school Qigong to beat the Thunder Drill pterosaur until only its neck and head were left. That scene is still vivid in his mind, and it keeps rolling in his mind. Understand, there is no more hesitation on the other end of the phone. I will tell you the results of this test. As if he was afraid that Molek would really take action, Bohara made a choice quickly. But he didn't forget, it's the 2 new menus. You have 5 seconds left. Molek said calmly, if I don't know the results of this test within 5 seconds, I will start immediately. You still want a cooking menu? When I asked you to choose just now, you didn't want to help. Now that you are forced to choose, you still want to ask? You are dreaming. I see, Bohala sighed, and then immediately told Molek everything about the incident. Just as he was about to speak, all the candidates were about to listen carefully. Molek turned off the speakerphone. The other candidates. How can you play like this? As they stared at each other, Molek put the phone to his ear and listened to everything. Click. After he finished speaking and hung up the phone, Bohara finally breathed a sigh of relief. It looks like there's no problem. He wiped the sweat off his face and said to the people sitting around the table in front of him, can he really blow the airship down from the sky? Min Ki, who was sitting next to him, was the first to speak up. I don't believe it. Well, Molek has done this before. Bohala said weakly. 19, and I think he might have been a little more restrained in what he said. Menki. Indeed, Molek's strength is simply not comparable to those of ordinary candidates. Sats pulled his nose hair, and even many professional hunters are not his opponents. He recalled the time when he and Molek faced the eyebrowless, vicious guy who stole the pharaoh's clothes. So Bohala was right. Liber ate the durian millefeuille and kept saying, after all, if the examiner we arranged accidentally died in the hands of the examinee, it would be a big problem. However, this is probably the first time I've seen a candidate threatening the association with the examiner's life. President? Wow. It's really the first time Netero sat at the table, laughing with great joy. He listened to all these words throughout the whole process and found them very interesting. This hunter test might be the most interesting one he had seen in the past few decades. But Bohala is right. We must know how to make choices at critical moments. Netero stroked his hooked beard. Anyway, Gunkan Jima wants to test their comprehensive ability and ability to work together. Even if Molek knew the content, it would not affect. The other candidates seem to be quite wary of him. He has the ability to clear the level without knowing the content, so we don't need to worry about this. Just wait and see how they do it. The other hunter test examiners nodded. Bahala smiled with difficulty. My new menu. I don't want to choose the first one. Just as Netero said, even if Molek didn't know the details, he could get through it with his own strength. So when Molek called to ask for a choice, if it was normal, Bahala would have chosen the first one without a second thought. But this time, Netero was right next to him. As an examiner who was still undergoing the test, he couldn't use the back door so blatantly in front of the association's president. I really want to help, but I can't do this in front of the president. Bahala sighed again in his heart. At this time, Menki also added at the right time, it's a pity that I can't see the menus of those two possible new dishes, Bahura. Stop talking. My heart is bleeding. On the other side at Gunkanjima, click. Molek, who had learned the whole story from Bahara, also hung up the phone. Well, the specific test content was not much different from the original Gunkanjima test. He put away the phone and looked up. Then he saw a group of candidates gathered around him. What's going on? Molek, Xiaojia asked first. The other candidates also looked over eagerly. Well, I have understood everything. Molek nodded to everyone. This is indeed a hunter test. Everyone was mentally prepared for this, and there was no surprise. However, what's next? They were all waiting for Molek to say, but Molek obviously had no intention of talking to them more. Well, everything is clear now. Everyone could go back to sleep. Molek waved his hand and looked like he was going to leave. The other candidates. How can I still sleep at this hour? They have no idea about what is going on and are totally confused. What on earth happened? In the crowd, the bald ninja Hanzo couldn't help but ask if there is anything we can talk about it after dawn. Molek ignored him and said, I'm going back to sleep now. Besides, Molek glanced at him and said, you are really disturbing the city appearance if you come out like this. Disturbing the city appearance? The other candidates subconsciously looked at Hanzo. Then, pervert, Peng Si, a female candidate next to her, screamed and ran away quickly. Are all ninjas like this? Oh, it's really perverted. No wonder it's a sushi bastard. A group of people looked at Hanzo subtly, whispering to each other. A gust of night wind blew, and Hanzo felt a chill all over his body. Then he realized that he had taken off all his clothes in the room before and only wore a crotchless pants. As a result, he ran out directly when he heard the noise, and he was not wearing anything else. It's over. My image as Hanzo was completely broken. The next morning, when the first rays of morning light fell on the island, many candidates came to the deck. Hanzo was dressed tightly and huddled in a corner without saying a word. Bakuer tried the communication equipment on the warship again. The radio was fine, but no matter which radio channel he tuned to, he could not hear any sound. In other words, he could not contact the outside world at all. It was no different from being in trouble here. Some candidates, after learning that this was a hunter test, did not rest much last night, thinking that they could leave here by finding some clues. Some people found a box of compasses, and some people also found the treasures they collected in the hotel owner's house. Some people even found a map strip in the management office. It was drawn on it from their location on Gunkanjima to the next round of test location and the map pointing to the island of Jingbyre. Many candidates thought that this was left for them by the hotel owner on purpose. They were all ready and wanted to leave here. To read the exciting novels, go to Falun Novel Network. But considering that Molek knew all the details of this test, they all held back and waited on the deck for Molek to show up to see if they could get any other useful information. Everyone, it's so early. When Molek woke up naturally after a comfortable sleep, he came out and greeted so many people naturally. Students, it's not early. I didn't sleep much last night. So, can you tell us the content of this test? Greta from 384 asked first. Why? Molek simply replied, why should I tell you? This is the information I got through my own connections and channels, and it is also very important information for customs clearance. Since you want to become a hunter, you should know that valuable information is very precious and important. If you just want to ask casually and get information from me, then you are a little too naive. The candidates present also understand this principle. They also thought that it would not be so easy to get information from Molek. What do you need? Asked the eldest of the three Amori brothers. You can't give me what I need? Molek glanced at them and shook his head. The other candidates, didn't they think of telling them the news? Some candidates secretly curled their lips and then left quietly. When they were exploring before, they found a logbook. It said that this ship was stationed on this island at the end of the war. It is very close to Jingbei Island from here. Even if it is just a small boat, it only takes about a day to get there. Staying here is just to see if we can get more useful information. Now that Molek is obviously unwilling to share, there is no need for them to stay. The boat has been found. Some food and water were loaded. You can go straight away. Okay, let's go. There were nearly a dozen candidates in the group, and they left here quickly. Molek didn't care about those guys who wanted to die. The candidates who were able to pass the third round of tests had relied on their own wisdom and physical strength to pass the difficult tests in the previous tests. Of course, they would not listen to other people's opinions so easily, and it was normal to have their own ideas. After a group of candidates left one after another. Soon, there were only more than 20 people left here, including Molek and his friends. I believe in Molek. Xiaojia spoke first. You have a way to pass the level, so we could just follow you. That's right, Killua responded. Not to mention Leorio and Karapika. They all came here with Morak from the beginning of the Poseidon. As long as they follow Morak, passing this round of tests will not be a problem. The other dozen candidates who stayed behind had the same idea. It was mainly because of the impression they had in the trap tower. Xiaojia and the others who were with Morak lived in a comfortable white house and ate barbecue hot pot. But they could only sleep on the cold floor and eat simple compressed biscuits. Follow Molek, and you will have meat to eat. This is the consensus of those currently present here. As a ninja, I have a sixth sense for sensing danger. Hanzo also stood up at this time. I know you may not believe it, but this intuition has helped me through many difficulties. Therefore, I think the dangers faced in this 287 test are definitely not small. Hanzo said seriously, I think the candidates who can stay are willing to cooperate with each other. He looked at Molek and said solemnly, although we may not have what you need, Molek, but we can help out and make this test go faster. Hanzo clenched his fist and said, since we have chosen to stay, we must have the intention of serious cooperation. I will definitely not fall behind. Badaro, Pungsi, Suomi, Bowker, Gosi, Cici Tour, and even the great god Domba who are still here all nodded. They have thought it through long ago. In the current situation, it may be difficult to pass the level with the strength of one person alone. The only way is to hold on to Molek's thigh. Moreover, they have discussed it privately. Even if Molek does not accept it, they may be able to pass the level by following Molek silently. It is much better than guessing it by yourself. The conclusions drawn from many hunter tests in the past, such as acting without understanding the situation, are often not ordinary tragic. So we plan to nominate you, Molek, to be our captain. Domba God said righteously. Become our leader. We will do as you ask. The remaining candidates nodded in unison. Is that so? Molek just gently stroked his chin. Then, when he saw the blind box slowly gathering in the scene, he finally smiled. No problem. Although Battleship Island is not the main plot of the comics, it belongs to the original animation. However, every original plot is created with the participation of Togashi. In the official interview with Togashi, he put some parts that were not reflected in the main plot of the comics into the original plot. For example, at the beginning, Leorio stole fish and worked in a circus. This is actually similar to the main storyline. The reason why Molek stayed on this island and did not stop in time last night was to see if there would be any blind boxes. Now it seems that the result did not disappoint him. The blind box shining with red light once again gathered on the field. On the basis of these candidates' intention to work together and overcome difficulties together. It is under this circumstance that such a blind box was created to meet the plot of Battleship Island. And so many candidates who fight on their own gather together. Then the things open in this blind box are definitely very good. Get a high-end blind box. Do you want to open it? Open successfully opened. Obtained. Zen Seal. Source World. Armor Hero. Today's update is delivered. Thank you again for your support. Post views. 609. start opening unlimited blind boxes from Hunter x Hunter Chapter 126, Time-Stopping Skills. The fourth round of testing. The luck of the draw. I hunt myself. 126 Time-Stop Skill. Fourth round of testing. Luck of the draw. I hunt myself. Zen Seal. A move from Armor Hero. The time-stopping skill of the light and shadow armor temporarily stops the flow of time within a specified range. This is a special skill common to all light and shadow armor. To activate it, place your hands together in front of your waist and emit an energy wave. This is a time-based move that can be used to freeze the opponent and gain an advantage in combat. The battle between masters is often a matter of a breath, or even less. At the end of Armor Hero, the 5 armors need to be combined and united to defeat the final Dark Demon Emperor. This just reflects the theme of unity in this battleship island. With the Zen Seal, it is equivalent to making Molek invincible in some aspects. Of course, the prelude to this move still requires posture and time. The premise is that this move cannot be interrupted when it is launched. However, at the critical moment, it is completely fine to use it as a killer. After getting the blind box he wanted and being satisfied with the harvest, there is no need to stay on this battleship island. Molek decisively took over the responsibility of leading the captain. Then he left to arrange the work. This test is mainly to examine the candidate's ability to work together. It is expected that after sunset tonight, the solar weather will be unusual, and a tornado will combine with a vortex current to create a storm that occurs once every 10 years. Our test topic this time is to escape from this place. He gave us 3 days. Excluding yesterday's treasure hunt, we actually only have today and tomorrow. The first severe storm will hit tonight, but it will not affect the island, but will wreak havoc in the outer seas. This is also a warning and reminder for us. The focus is on the second wave tomorrow night. Molek explained in detail to the candidates, and then pointed to the outer wall of the warship next to them, which was taller than them. There, barnacles were attached to it one after another. As we all know, barnacles are something that marine creatures hate, and they often attach to rocks and underwater buildings in groups. And since they can run to such a high place and attach here, it means the second wave tomorrow night will engulf this place completely. Therefore, if we don't leave by tomorrow night, we will sink with this island. So, Molek told everyone present the content, time range, and restrictions of the test. Everyone showed a look of sudden enlightenment. According to this, the way to pass the level is to work together and leave here through everyone's efforts. Kurapika was lost in analysis again. Then the method of leaving becomes the key. Hanzo nodded and said, if the wind and waves are that strong, ordinary boats can't leave at all. Even if they could get out of the island, they would be completely blown away by the huge waves outside. So, the two of them looked at the huge warship below them at the same time. That's right, Molek clapped his hands gently. The answer is what you think. The vehicle to leave requires the warship under us. This warship looks old and badly damaged, but in fact, there are no problems with the main equipment such as power, control, and driving. Or even if there are problems, people from the Hunter Association have come to inspect and confirm it. The candidates who got the answers took action one after another. On the one hand, they checked the various equipment on the warship, and on the other hand, they saw how to separate the warship from the rocks. The propeller at the bottom is entangled in seaweed and needs to be removed. Someone needs to have an overview in the cab. The power room needs to be checked, and then the power supply will be turned off. To get the warship off the rocks, the explosive force of the bomb is needed to push it. There are cannonballs under the sea, which can be retrieved wearing a diving suit. As for the problem of insufficient fresh water, we can use evaporation to extract fresh water. As for food, we can just remove the barnacles on the hull, peel them, and cook them. Molek arranged all major aspects in an orderly manner. Gezko and Killua took care of the tangled seaweed. Leorio, Bedello, and Gosika dive to get the bomb. Sheba was in the shooting room calibrating the aim and angle of the shooting. Chief and Scarpon were responsible for the transportation in the middle. Dongba and Samigia and his monkey provided lighting and navigation. Bakur and Zizichur pushed the power lever, and the 3 Amori brothers were responsible for extracting fresh water and collecting barnacles. After all the personnel were arranged, Molek handed over the remaining tasks and control of the situation to Hanzo and Karapika. Compared with the original mindless groping, this time, under the leadership of Molek's efficiency, it was much faster. In this case, we expect to be able to complete all preparations tonight, and we will be able to leave officially early tomorrow morning. The original version of the Battleship Island plot on the first day, the treasure search, check-in, and room change were all normal. On the second day, the candidates were like headless flies, fighting on their own, and no one stood up to take the lead. As a result, many candidates fell into the deep sea in the first wave of storms in the evening. This also made the remaining people spontaneously organize together and elect Karapika and Hanzo as captains. Then everyone worked together and spent the third day. It took a whole day to get everything done. And they successfully left here and completed the test. Now, with the intervention of Molek, everyone joined together directly on the second day. And they had to work together more efficiently and more harmoniously than the original version, especially with a common goal, knowing what to do next with a clear line of defense and motivation, and under the leadership of the backbone. The progress of the warship's recovery and debugging operation was unusually fast. It didn't even take a day before evening. In the evening, everything was ready. At that time, we just need to use cannons to smash the rocks and free the warships, and then we can leave. A group of people were busy all day, and they were very pleased to see the results in front of them. And the key is to complete it one day ahead of schedule, so that even if there are any omissions and deficiencies, there's still a whole day tomorrow to make up for it. So, in the evening, when a group of people were drinking the fish soup they caught and eating a barnacle seafood feast, the storm came as expected. The huge tornado waves connected the sky and the earth and almost penetrated everything in the world. Such a terrifying momentum is enough to prove that Molek did not lie, and also proved how correct their choice was. In particular, Dongba and Suomi saw the other candidates who had left before being sucked into the whirlpool through the blurred light. The ship was destroyed, and the people fell into the sea. One by one, they were all sucked into the deep sea and basically could not survive. In this way, the remaining candidates rested early in the evening. When it was calm on the third day, one by one, they all gathered again in the early morning. After seeing the storm last night, they didn't want to stay here for a moment, especially after a bigger storm hit tonight. Boom! Under the roar of the huge cannon, the surrounding rock walls were all shattered. Success! Amid the cheers of the candidates, Karapika steered the ship in the control room and successfully steered the Gunkanjima away from here. Even Hisoka and Jitaraka squatted in the corner of the deck, enjoying the sea breeze. The remaining 20 or so candidates on the ship all passed without exception. It's a day faster than I thought. At the same time, the Hunter Association's special flying ship floated in the sky again. The novel was taken from the Ralas website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. Although we have learned the specific test content, it is really rare to be able to mobilize all these candidates and have everyone play their part. Liebert stood at the window, looking at the candidates below. The number of qualified candidates is 25, which is really an excellent number. Many candidates who drove the warship out of the sea area all passed this temporary test stage. As for those who died in the sea before, there is no need to say more. Liebert landed the airship on the deck of the warship. As soon as he landed, he announced the good news to all the candidates present. Congratulations, everyone. You could take part in the fourth test. There are only 2 rounds left in the entire Hunter test, the fourth test and the final test. As long as you pass 2 more rounds, you can get a Hunter license. This news also made everyone see the dawn of hope and cheered up. I am honored to continue to be in charge of the fourth test. Liebert snapped his fingers, and then a beautiful lady wearing the uniform of the Hunter Association came over pushing a card. I'd like to invite everyone to draw a lot first. Draw a lot. What is this for? The candidates who were afraid of being cheated did not make a single move. In this box, there are the same number of cards as the number of people. Reber tapped the association box on the card. Now, according to the order in which you clear the trap tower, each of you will draw a card. Clearance order. Leorio keenly caught the key words and immediately looked at Karapika. The latter also happened to look at him, and the two nodded at the same time. It seems that this is what I said before, the advantage and initiative. Killa Xiaojia's eyes lit up, and he said happily to Kia beside him, "Ah, we have finally come to this point." Killua nodded. "I thought this examiner had forgotten about our benefits." The other 20 examinees heard the conversation between the two and looked over immediately. They seemed to know something. The Dongbot god rolled his eyes and then came over quietly. "Hello, Xiaojia." He leaned over to Xiaojia's ear and said, "What do you mean by advantage and initiative?" "Ah, that's what the examiner Mr. Lee Bear mentioned to us before. Those who clear the trap tower first will have the advantage and initiative in the next 4th round of tests." Since we just worked together, Xiaojia didn't hide anything and told us everything. To read the exciting novels, go to Falu Novel Network. How long does it take to clear the level? The other candidates began to recall the number of qualified candidates announced by the system after they arrived at the bottom of the trap tower. It seemed that they were all preparing for the 4th round of tests. "Now, please let Mr. Molek draw first." Molek stepped forward and drew a card. At the moment he took the card out of the box, the indicator light on the box lit up. The number on the card he took out was recorded. Molek took a look at the number on the card and put it away. Then Killua, Karapika, Gon, and Leorio stepped forward to draw cards in turn. But when Gon drew his card, he was obviously stunned. Then the remaining candidates also spontaneously lined up in order of qualification. After all the candidates had drawn their cards, "Okay, now there should be a number on the cards you have drawn," Rib said with his hands behind his back. "That number is simply the number of the candidates currently taking the test. The number you draw determines." Ribus the raccoon narrowed his eyes. "Hunter and the hunted. What does this mean?" The candidates were puzzled and waited for Lee Bear to continue to explain. "In other words, the theme of the 4th test is to take each other's number plates." Some candidates reacted instantly after hearing this, and their faces suddenly changed. "Therefore, the number on the card you drew represents the candidate number, which is your target." Lee Bear made the final.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.